And I know it's a stupid, giant corporate conglomerate, but the best motto ever is literally the words, just do it. Because at the end of the day, man, the things that I've done in my life, I would never have done unless I didn't tell myself, dude, just do it. Make a movie, just do it. Okay, here's step one.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast, possibly the most yellow podcast you know, and possibly, as I've been told at the end of this episode, maybe a show that I should start charging people for, or taking their insurance info down and license this as like a therapy podcast. Because we got a very fun episode this week that apparently felt like a therapy session, which I love to hear. But this week, I've got my friend Ryan Francis on the show, and it was an absolute blast of a conversation. We seriously talk about so much. And Ryan is like just such a fun dude to talk to. We could have talked for hours, honestly, but for the sake of the podcast, we cut it off at around 2. So this one's filled with so many fun stories, especially if you, like me, are a horror fan or a pro wrestling fan, because Ryan has built a life that has provided him a lot of fun and honestly crazy experiences that involve both of those things. So I'm honestly like jealous of so much of what he's experienced in his life up until now. And it's funny because I didn't even know if he knew maybe the depth of his life until he spoke about it all with me here on the show. And I think we kind of uncovered that for him. So it was a blast to uncover all of that with him. So if you're here also because of the movie ThanksKilling that Ryan starred in, then, well, honestly, so am I, in a way. That's how Ryan and I originally met, I had him on the former horror podcast, horror comedy podcast that I did called Poltergeist, that I was a part of and co-hosted. And that's where I originally met Ryan. And we talk about that a bit here in the show. And we covered all that of where we originally met. So we have had some podcast history together before, and we're bringing it back around here. But of course, there's definitely some fun ThanksKilling talk here. We couldn't go doing this entire podcast without talking about that wild, wild movie. So of course, you know it's coming, right? So this is seriously such a fun conversation that I'm just excited to share with you guys. And remember, of course, as always, I'll note it here at the beginning. If you like anything that you hear while you're listening, screenshot your phone, share it on your story. Or if you really like it, jump over to iTunes, leave a cool review so I know that this show matters to somebody other than me. And the more reviews and tags and follows and shares that you leave me, the more that it shows the almighty algorithm that other people like this show. So please do any of those things. More importantly, maybe than anything, tell somebody to check it out if they're ever looking for a podcast recommendation. Help me spread these stories and get them into more ears. But this has been a long intro. Without any further ado, let's get it into your ears first. Here it is, episode 41 of What You Don't Hear, and lots of fun stories with Ryan Francis.
When I was standing outside waiting for you, I witnessed a car accident, a 3-car pileup, actually. That's what I was looking at when I was going to run over and see if they needed any help. However, there were already like 5 or 6 people that were already running over to see if they needed any help. But there was definitely a crunch. It was a little like, oh shit. And I think that there was a police car involved in this accident as well. But someone was definitely texting when they made a turn. But I'm the most unreliable witness ever, so I definitely didn't want to say, like, oh, I saw what happened, because there were too many other people over there.
You also were like, I got this podcast.
I've got this podcast to do. Like, I don't really have the time to be waiting around on Columbus Police Department to take my statement. I'm probably pretty unreliable. Like, I think the black car turned this way, and then the minivan was turning this way. Like, no, actually, that's completely opposite as to what happened.
Sir, there's not a black car or a minivan.
Right. They weren't even look at the guy on the motorcycle took off and he pulled a gun. What? Excuse me? What? Yeah, dude, he took off. He was the one who got in the way. He's the one that caused the accident. I tried to get everybody out of like any sort of situation. Like,
He was stealing that lady's purse.
he stole the lady's purse, and she's gone. She ran. She hopped on one of those scooters and like took off after him. I don't know.
She luckily she lost her purse, but still had her phone. So
Yeah, she's trying to scan the bird scooter to go chase him.
That would actually be incredible.
Dude, that would be cool.
And then the end of this skit is the cops are actually over here, and there's a dude just standing there. He's like, I'm the janitor for this building. I don't know why you're telling me any of this.
Right. Like, I'm not even involved. Thanks,
like,
man.
Thanks for telling me.
You have a cigarette? Sure.
Oh, dude. Okay, well, that was our audio test. But now that levels are set, I think I'm just going to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Because that story is honestly a great way to start this episode.
It's weird kind of after. It's kind of morning for me. I slept in a lot.
That's fair. That's fair.
So it was like, good morning, 3-car pileup.
That's it. Talking to a janitor, watch somebody steal something, somebody rides away on a bike. It's insane. Wow. Well, what a start to your day. I'm glad that it went from you possibly being an eyewitness to a huge car crash, but you said, I gotta go be on What You Don't Hear podcast, so I can't stick around here very long.
Right. Hey, they had the help. They had the help that they needed. They didn't need another individual running up to see what was going on. Like, are you okay? Like knocking on the window. Are you okay?
Are you good? Are you good?
I see, and that also scares me. Like, what if I did run up on an accident and like I am the only one, and I give someone the wrong advice, like you should get out of the car, when they're like, what the heck? Like, no.
And there's like
you're
one thing that's holding their neck to get
right, and then like get out of the car, and then their life is ruined. Like,
you're like, yeah, come to me, come on. And
the paramedics are like, who told this person to get out of the car? I'm like, well,
the first guy that showed up is who told him.
He's gone. He left. He just said get out. It was this guy. He showed up. He's like, get out of the car, and then he just left.
He just went away.
I don't
understand.
It was another bald guy, looked just like me.
Yeah. So if anybody else saw him, like I saw him too, but
right,
they could get us confused. So
they
I
were
just
just
want
in an accident, concussions. I'm sure.
I just want you to know that it's not me.
I didn't tell him to get out of the car. I'm not the reason that their life has completely changed.
The person's coming to like, he told me to get out of the car. You're like, no.
He's a liar.
He's a liar.
He's a liar. You can just tell from his eyes.
You're like, oh my God, they're so concussed. This is not good.
Right. They need to get put in the ambulance now. I did not give medical advice but that's what would happen. I feel like that's what would happen if
that's very fair.
I would give the wrong advice that I shouldn't.
That's a very scary scenario to come across a car crash first.
Right.
Never done that. You could have almost did it.
Right.
But thankfully you didn't, because I don't know what I did.
More realistic scenarios. So these are the things, like, I have a little bit of anxiety. Like, things like this really stress me out. So, like, car accident, right? There's, like, liquid spilling out of the car or something. And you know, your first thing is, you tell someone in a car accident, like, don't move. You know,
right,
yeah.
You
don't want them, you know, who knows?
Who knows what's
if
broken?
They're like, screaming, like, don't move. But then, that's when the car goes up in flames. You know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of things, like, should I tell them to move and then perhaps it ruins their life? Or is this car going to blow up, and if they don't move...
That's true.
What decision gets made at the last minute?
It starts bursting into flames. You take a handful of steps back, and you're just like, hey, the fire site is based off movement.
You'll be paralyzed if you move, but you might... we have a decision. What do you think?
The fire will get bigger if you move. Yeah, or just asking them what they want to do.
This is awful. Like, I hope... Man, anyone listening to this is going to be like, I hope Ryan is never the only person around when I'm in a car accident, because he's going to think too hard about everything.
Somebody who has listened to this will later be in a car crash. You'll be showing up and they're like, damn it.
No. Why is Ryan here at this scene?
Get away from me.
I'm not a doctor.
Like, I can try and help. I don't know. Like, I listened to your episode of What You Don't Hear podcast. You don't know shit.
You are correct.
But I liked you in ThanksKilling.
That speaks a lot. Says a lot about you.
Dude, we have been rolling. We've got it. I'm not even...
We've got the levels set.
That's what's up, man.
This is the official start to the episode. So, I mean, we had to jump in and start recording because we were having just all the fun talks before we were recording. And so I had to be like, okay, we got to cut this short. We need to jump into the actual episode. We had like 100 different awesome topics that we were like having fun talking about before we even started rolling.
So we did, man.
Okay, we got to get on the mics now.
No, for real. Like we were talking when we first came in. It feels like 3 or 4 years since we've seen each other, and we're talking about seeing each other's social media posts and everything. And so it's been cool to see your growth and things that you've been doing with your businesses and in your personal life. So it's really exciting to be here and to see and to catch up for a little bit.
Yeah, dude. And I've already told you, like, I appreciate that so much because we had that conversation of just like, I feel like so much of what I put out into the internet world, I'm just like, no one sees this. And like, so for you to be like, hey dude, those like huge journal entry posts you share, I love reading them. I'm like, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best thing you could tell me. But dude, I'm so stoked you were down to do this. Like,
heck yeah.
I am very, very excited because clearly we just started like the whole first 10 minutes of this podcast talking about random stuff.
Yep.
It is so fun to always hang out with you and chat with you. The fun thing about this is podcast number 3 for us.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that is wild. This is number 3.
Yeah, because it's been, like we were saying, a couple years since we've seen each other. We were talking about how 2020 is a whole 10 years on its own, so it feels like
right.
We were trying to determine like when was the last time we saw each other. Like, it wasn't last year, but it feels like last year, so it must have been like maybe 2 years, because I don't even think...
Maybe 2018, because I brought Jordan Downey along with me.
Because we did ThanksKilling 3.
Yep.
And yeah, that probably was...
That was probably...
2018.
2018 or... I don't know if I
Somewhere
dare to say 2017.
Yeah,
do I dare say it?
Yeah,
it's possible. I don't know.
So...
We'd have to look up when that episode was. I'm sure that we could find it pretty easy.
We could find it. So folks, what we're talking about, if you need filled in, you were on 2 episodes of the podcast I used to do called Poltergeist, and had you on for the movie that you were involved in, the wonderful ThanksKilling. We had you on the first time to talk about ThanksKilling, and then we had you on again with Jordan, director of the movie, to talk about the sequel, ThanksKilling 3. Yes, I said that correctly. There is no number 2.
Yep.
So
yeah.
It's fun now that years later, we're sitting down for a third time to make a third podcast happen. I didn't even think about that when I like hit you up of like, hey dude, do you want to be on the show? Like, I was like, I would enjoy to talk to Ryan. And obviously we knew each other at that point, but in the same way that you said, hey, I've been keeping up with social media, blah, blah, blah. I do the same thing with you. I love seeing everything that you're involved in and finding new things that I'm like, I didn't know he did that or this or whatever. So I was excited to talk to you and dig into all of those things that you do. But then I don't even think it was until like, I don't know, probably last night when I was like, all right, cool, recording with Ryan tomorrow. I was like, this is the third time we've done a podcast together, actually. Like, that's so fun. Like, yeah. But now we're not doing it based off the structure of a movie and following along with the movie and talking about that. We're doing it based off the structure of your life.
Oh man.
So we're taking a different dive. So we'll see how comparable your life story is to the story of ThanksKilling.
Probably super close. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, dude, I'm very excited to dive into that because again, we've talked before, we've done podcasts before, we've always been talking about a movie or your direct involvement in those movies and everything outside of that. Now I'm excited to take a dive into your story and everything. And I'm sure we're going to talk about ThanksKilling at some point.
Right.
But I'm excited to talk about everything around that and all the stuff you've done since then because
sure,
I see so much of, I feel like you're super involved in like community events and comedy and music. You make music and like, I just feel like there's so many different things you do. So I'm excited to dive in to all of those things.
We can dive.
So if you're down to share all that with me, unless you just want to talk, we can just talk about ThanksKilling instead if you want.
Hey, there's a lot. There's always a lot to say about ThanksKilling. I feel like we might have covered all of that on the Poltergeist stuff. We actually had some good conversations about both of those movies.
I remember that episode being, I think it might have ended up lasting, like holding on to its title as the longest Poltergeist episode that we did.
Oh, really?
Because I think we talked for like 3 hours, and the movie's like an hour 20 or something.
Wow, that's wild.
Because like every new scene we would talk about, you would have like this fun, awesome story about how that scene was shot or what went into it and all that sort of stuff. So like, we dug into all the details of ThanksKilling. So if any listeners or viewers on YouTube are here strictly for Ryan's ThanksKilling talk, let me tell you, we'll probably cover a little bit of it here. But if you want that deep dive, the ThanksKilling episode of Poltergeist, you can go search that. It's still available on the internet. Spotify, iTunes. Go find it. If that's the deep dive you're looking for ThanksKilling, that's where you could find that.
It's on the internet somewhere. It's out there.
So
that's funny.
And I know we probably covered some of this stuff, and I don't think either of us are really going to remember what we covered, even in that Poltergeist episode.
Yeah.
But genuinely, I don't remember. Are you from Columbus, or where did you grow up at?
So I grew up in Heath.
Okay.
So, I mean, Columbus relatively, but also two different worlds at the same time, you know.
Right,
I think anything outside of the Outer Belt constitutes as a different place.
A whole different place.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So take me back. Like, what was growing up in Heath like? Because, I mean, I sit with you now, and I know you, even though, again, we've technically only hung out like 3 times. Or, well, no, we had a meeting one time. We talked about.
We did. Yeah, we had breakfast or dinner or something.
Yes.
At like IHOP, I think.
So I guess the point that I'm making is we've chatted a couple times.
Yeah,
but
for
again,
sure.
We've never really gotten to know each other. But everything that I know you as is this like outgoing, like very fun, energetic. Like I literally, you are so fun to talk to. And I also think that you're very creative. I think that like you have your hands in so many different things. So where does that come from? So like what was growing up like? Like, is that when that all started? Have you always been this like outgoing, like, let's do fun stuff? Or when did that pop up?
I mean, you know, I give a lot of props to my mom. When I was, you know, really little, as far back as I can remember, you know, she spent a lot of time, you know, teaching me creative stuff, you know, like she would do drum patterns like on her legs. You know, she started speaking Spanish to me at like the age of 2, you know, just entry level stuff. She was really doing a lot of things to help curb my creativity. I was involved in, you know, church musicals, heavily involved in the church when I was younger, you know, through my, you know, teenage years and whatnot. But I was doing all those musicals and those plays. I was that typical theater kid, you know, like in high school. I was the theater kid. I was like the jocks and things. Those guys would be like, dude, this kid is like cuckoo. Like, this guy's way off his rocker. But with my group of friends, like I had my special niche of people that I like to hang out with. And it was just like the theater kids, like the creatives. And we loved trying to be funny. And, you know, we loved performing for people and singing and acting and doing typical theater kid stuff.
Right,
like,
right. Okay.
That's so weird to generalize like that, but that's how I mean, that's definitely how I view myself in those years. And so I think that was really kind of like the base of what I've turned out to be, I guess.
Right. So it's kind of always been there. The very like I want to act. I want to be not in a negative way, like the center of attention, but I love to just do things.
Yeah, I'd love to do things. What really kind of kicked things off, you know, I think everybody starts finding themselves, you know, it was kind of late middle school, you know, early high school. I started a band. You know, everyone, you know, I got a drum set. It was like my little kid dream, getting a drum set for Christmas, and was in a couple bands, one with a guy, Chase Duncan. He still performs a lot. Him and I, we were in our very first band together.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was cool. He was playing guitar then. We were in middle school when this happened. And my very first show was, with Chase Duncan was in a band called American Small Town, and we played in his girlfriend's dad's Masonic temple for her birthday party. And I remember playing Last Resort by Papa Roach. I mean, we're in middle school, like, we're playing Last Resort terribly, you know, except for Chase. Chase was awesome at playing Last Resort, right. But like, I didn't even know how to tune drums. I had no idea what I was doing, and my cymbals sounded like tin cans. But it was kind of like, you know, that was one of the most important gifts ever, because that, you know, eventually my drum set got upgraded, started a band with a couple of my best friends called Overrated, and we played for about 9 years, but that's when I really started promoting shows. Like that was the MySpace days, reaching out to these bands I have no business reaching out to. Hey, if you guys wanted to stop in Columbus, I'll put on a show. And we got in with Bernie's Distillery on High Street on campus when it was still open. And I would book shows there all the time for bands we had no business playing with, like the Unseen and the Casualties, like all these fantastic big names in punk rock. And yeah, I loved promoting those shows. I loved seeing people come to the shows. And that was so much fun, like just being in that band and being in that atmosphere.
So was music the first thing that popped up for you then? Was that like maybe like first love that you would say, or first like creative endeavor that got your attention?
I think, yeah. I mean, like being in the theater, you know, you rehearse and you rehearse and you rehearse, and then you've got this small block of shows that you do for folks. And what really got my endorphins going was like, you know, those stage performances. If you've ever acted in front of a crowd and, you know, people laughing at you when you're on stage or having a reaction to things that you said, like gasps or anything like that, when you can do that on a stage, it feels so good when you're performing. And then kind of going into the band stuff, I'm playing drums and having people come up to you after a show saying like, holy crap, man, like that was freaking awesome. Like what you did, like you play really well. It's like that. I was able to de-stress, you know, like, oh, I like had such a good time. That was also like the same feeling, if not better, because, you know, in theater, you've got a bunch of people involved. You know, when you're in a band, it's like, hey, it's just the three of us. Like we're the ones kind of controlling this narrative when we're on stage. And I think that's where that really took, that band really is where I found my passion in performance.
What was it that like attracted you to the promoting side? Because I mean, that's kind of a jump to go from like, hey, I want to be in the bands to I actually just want to book the shows. Was it just like, hey, we need shows and someone's got to book them, so I guess we'll just do it? Or did something else like attract you to that side of things?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I wanted to please people. And what I mean by that is I wanted to build bills in music, like especially in the punk genre at the time, that the punks would come out and go like, holy crap, I've never heard of these bands. Where did they come from? But they're great. And being from Heath, I was able to bring bands that weren't in the Columbus scene to Columbus and play. And having people go, wow, that lineup was awesome. Like, I know, like, hey, man, I built this. Like, I was able to negotiate this and put this together and put together a lineup. And it's kind of one of those things, it's learning really young. And it still happens to this day. And I'm sure a lot of promoters experience it. Like, not every show's a banger. You can put on a show, and it's like you have what you feel is such a good lineup for a Saturday night, and no one comes for absolutely no reason, you know? So I think that that is like huge, is just pleasing people and giving people a good show. And that's kind of evolved to today, where I really just kind of focus on my one holiday show the charity event that I do. It's like, I want to build something that people go, what were you thinking? This is insane.
Yeah. Well, that was honestly going to be the next thing that I wanted to ask you about was like, do you still book any like live music shows or anything like that, or is it all focus is on like huge, you know, holiday show and all that sort of stuff?
It's promoting costs some money, and I'm not, you know, I'm not one to. I put a lot of money into my shows, but I like doing one show that's freaking cool and weird and whatever. And the holiday show's that one show where I like to get, you know, comedians together and some local bands, and then have like a national celebrity pop in that's relatively, you know, that's cool to come out for, you know, whatever, you know, a flight and a back scratch or something. And just put on a really weird show. And it's still kind of like that same thing. Like, I'm going to announce a lineup, and I'm going to have people going, what in the world are you thinking? One of my goals before the pandemic, there's been one artist that I've wanted on the holiday show to headline forever. And I was able to book her. I booked her. She confirmed and everything, and then the pandemic happened and ruined it all. And now it's not even a possibility. But I had Rebecca Black booked.
Incredible.
for 2020. And unfortunately, obviously, pulled the plug on the Holiday Show. Nothing went through, and now she's like, since then she's been on the cover of like Vogue, and she's literally not. It's not even a possibility anymore.
Wild.
But yeah, it's got like it's still that fantastic feeling putting together a lineup and having people go, whoa, like this is so weird. Why?
Right.
And that's what I like. I like people being able to see a bunch of different musicians, different genres of music that under one roof with some comedy tossed in there, and then a weird headliner. Like, who knows? It's a really good feeling. That's why I like doing it.
And how many years have you done it now? I don't remember.
We're doing a virtual show this year. It's going to be run like a PBS telethon, probably over a 3-day span. But this will be year 9 technically. But it'll be show 10.
Okay, so how did it start? Like, I know we're jumping probably all over the place.
Yeah,
here,
I feel like that's my bad. I'm kind of
no. That's I'm also like, tell me about this and tell me about that and blah blah blah. But I'm genuinely just curious. But we've never talked about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So like, how does, I guess maybe first explain what the Holiday Show is to maybe anybody who's not familiar with it.
Sure. No. Good idea. So it's called the Euge Holiday Show. Euge is my nerdy hip hop name. When my band Overrated broke up, I still wanted to perform live, but I didn't want to start a new band because I know how difficult it is to kind of like, you got to find the right people, write the music. It's just, I didn't want to start over. I had heard of this guy, MC Lars. He's a NerdCore rapper. I was like, the dude makes beats on a laptop and he just goes out and performs. I was like, I can do that. So I wrote an EP, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since then. It's something I can manage myself. I don't have to swing dates by anybody. I can rehearse on my own, yada, yada, yada. So I perform nerdy hip-hop, and I don't do it a whole lot. I was dating this girl at the time. Her name's Jen. Shout out to Jen. We dated for a very small amount of time. She's still one of my best friends to this day. But while we were dating, we had talked about, like, I hadn't promoted any shows recently, and I really wanted to impress her. So I was like, hey, like, I'm doing this charity event. Nice. I'm booking this charity event. And she's like, wow, that's like really cool of you. I was like, yeah, it's it's going to be free, and there's going to be a bunch of bands. And she's like, wow, like that's so sweet. Like, you're so kind. I was like, cool. So let's flex. Let's do this. And the whole point of this show was to book multi-genres, because I think multi-genre shows are super important. It exposes people to new music.
Totally.
And I wanted the bill to be packed. We're talking, 10-minute set changes. Like, we go quick, bam, 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 bam. And I want to involve some comedy, because my best friend at the time was involved in the comedy scene. So I wanted to throw him a bone and say, dude, well, let's get you on stage. There'll be people here, so why not perform in between bands? Let's see how this goes. So it was kind of an experiment. But the whole concept of this Holiday Show, when it first came, was to pack the bill, multi-genres, and get some comedy in there. And that's exactly what I did. We had it at Bernie's Distillery, and the show was free if you brought a winter coat for the Faith Mission of Columbus homeless shelter. And that first show was, I think I got to say, 10 years ago. Yeah, I think it's technically 10 years ago now, because we skipped a year. So that was 10 years ago when that first show happened, always in December. And then the most important thing to me, too, like, while we are helping the community and, getting these coats for the homeless, I really just wanted a show where people can kind of escape, go to a dive bar where they can drink super cheap and listen to some good music and just have an entertaining evening in the thick of the holiday season. Like, everything's crazy. Like, I just want to go to the show, let loose, have a couple, have a couple PBRs, and just kind of kick back and watch some top quality musicians play some good music and entertain me for a little bit while doing some good stuff for the community. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Of when that show happens. And then from there, just kind of everything stayed the same. It's always been about Faith Mission for the most part. It's always been about packing the bill with multi-genres. But then I added the twist with like a celebrity kind of headlining at some point. And the second year was when I was introduced to Samwell from What in the Butt viral video.
Incredible.
And yeah, so he came out and he performed at Bernie's Distillery. If you've ever been to Bernie's Distillery,
I'm not sure actually.
This place, I'll draw a picture. This place was in a basement, basically. You would walk in, like it was this little door off of High Street. You would walk down these stairs, sticky and slippery all at the same time. The floor would be sticky. There were no doors on the bathroom stalls. Like, let's just say on Sunday nights were dollar whiskey and Coke nights. That kind of draws the picture for the most part. Very small place. It would be packed with 150 kids in there, packed. And then you have Samwell, who did the What in the Butt music video performing on this little tiny stage, packed house, and having people wiggle their butts to that song. It was gnarly. It was just an absolutely incredible experience. But that's
the coolest thing.
That's when I knew, when people were like, WTF, how did you get Samwell to come? And that's when I knew how easy it was to just ask. Find them on the internet and just ask them.
Okay, we were talking about this a little bit before we rolled, and this is genuinely, I remember I asked you a question, and then I was like, actually don't answer that because I want to dig into it later. But like, that's honestly a fascinating thing that I see you do, because I am one of those people who, like, it doesn't matter what level of celebrity someone is. I'm like, how in the heck did you get a hold of them? But that's something I see you do relatively often. You always find a way to meet these people or get them involved in your things. Like, but you kind of just said, you're like, I just kind of found the key of just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to ask. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's definitely certain people are not going to respond to you for the most part. You always ask still, because you just never know. It's like a lottery with some people. If they have 250,000 followers on Instagram or Facebook, the odds are unlikely that you're going to get a response from anyone. But you look for email addresses, you just go back into your nostalgia catalog, think about shows or music that you've listened to when you were younger. And a lot of these people that maybe their careers stopped, 10, 15 years ago, maybe they still are doing stuff. Maybe they're still super relevant, but it doesn't matter. Like, approach them, send them a really kind email, say, hey, this is the event, this is what we're doing. Like, I want to hang out with you. I think that you bring a lot to the table. You mean a lot to me. And I'd love to have you out. And the response has been phenomenal. Like, I've been able to get almost everyone I've ever wanted to have come out, and I've achieved personal dreams of mine at some of these shows.
I mean, you've met some really cool. I mean, even the what in the butt. That's
right.
still rad.
How crazy is that? Growing up, that was one of the first viral videos. I remember watching it in high school on my dial-up internet. Like, this is weird. What is this?
Let me tell you. I want to tell you something funny.
Okay,
you were that for us getting you on Poltergeist.
That is so funny. That's wild.
So
man.
The trickle down effect.
That's so funny.
Is we were like, dude, ThanksKilling. Like, wait a second. Somebody we know knows one of the people that acted in it. Do you think he'd be down? And then, so yeah, you coming and doing Poltergeist was a version of that.
So funny
for us. So being like, what? Ryan Francis from ThanksKilling? We're gonna get him on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
But that really is awesome though. And I guess I think where I get stuck in stuff like that a lot is like you. I think it's the classic, like, you forget that they're human beings.
Yep.
You put them on a pedestal
yes.
of like, oh, there's no way they'd answer a DM or an email. But kind of like you were saying, a lot of these people probably are like, wait, holy crap, you care about me, and oh, you want me to be involved in this cool thing or whatever it is. It's not just like, hey, you're like kind of famous, what's up? Like, let's hang out.
Right.
Like, I'm sure they're probably also identifying like, wow, this person cares about me being around and wants to not just get to know me, but wants me to be involved in something cool.
Oh, I mean, the energy that they have for supporting, the charity, that working with Faith Mission of Columbus has been a dream. Like, they've been super supportive. We've had some bands with, foul language in their names, and Faith Mission is they are a faith-based homeless shelter, but they're one of the biggest shelters in the community. They help a lot. They do 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. That's a lot. And they're always taking volunteers. If you're in Columbus listening to this, always need help with volunteers serving food. So definitely check out their website. But when you explain the mission to some of these folks, these celebrities that you're bringing in, they're just so on board. Like, hey, that's like actually a really cool thing that you're doing. And performance fees, you know, they're just like super generous, man. Like they're just super generous with their time. I mean, I've pulled people from Los Angeles to come. I mean, if you've ever flown from Columbus to Los Angeles direct, that is not a fun flight. It is a long flight. Yeah. It's not easy. And then you're dealing with a 3-hour time difference. So when you're just coming out for a weekend, you know, and a lot of these folks, I'll have them stay 2 nights. I'll bring them in, they stay the night, do the show, stay the night, and then off the next morning. That's a quick turnaround. When I go to LA, I'm there for at least a week, and I haven't even adjusted to the times yet. But everyone's been super, super cool about that kind of flip and just the respect that they give back to me and just wanting to be a part of a weird little show. You know, I'm not drawing 1,000 people. I'm drawing a couple hundred. Yeah, we're playing small spaces, but that's the point. I want it to continue to be a small space. Even though larger spaces can bring more money, we'll escalate to that later. But right now, I just love the intimacy. Like,
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
I can shake Lori Beth Denberg's hand without even having to flinch,
which is so cool.
How wild is that?
That's
I mean, would have never thought that, you know, she would come out and do something like this. But
yeah.
Yep, she showed up and she was hilarious. You know,
so sick. So do you feel like, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but like, how does it feel for you to be doing that show? And obviously we talked earlier of like you being like, hey, I love entertaining people. I love making them experience something that maybe they wouldn't have experienced by having these multi-genre shows and infusing comedy. But like, how does it feel for you? I mean, to be doing that for 10 years, like that's an accomplishment. Like that. And so like,
yeah.
How does it feel to like actually know that that is a thing that you got off the ground and it's like a reoccurring thing that you're like, yeah, no, I accomplish this every year and I get to meet these cool people and give people performances, entertain people, help the community. Like you're doing a lot within one event.
Yeah. It feels really, really cool. It feels really nice, you know, being able to give back. I mean, if there's one thing, it's like the charity element has really grown so dear to my heart. What at first started as a flex for a girl really evolved because I got to, you know, I really started reassessing where my time went. It was like, you know, there is a lot of stuff that I could be doing for the community, and doing the holiday show opened me up to so many more opportunities for volunteerism, and I've learned a lot through doing that. But it's really cool, man. I love when a band approaches me years later and says, "Oh, hey, you're the guy that got us booked on the show with, you know, Phil Moore from Nick Arcade." Like, that was a cool show. I like that. I like that as a band, you know, they can see that flyer. That flyer is going to live forever. That's created for that event. And for that band to walk away saying, my band name is on this bill with all this other craziness with the WWE's Lonely Virgil. Like well, we played the show and it was weird. Like it was a crazy time. I like that. But it feels really good. It's sustained this long. I don't think I've talked about it before, but I'm doing a virtual show this year. Next year is going to be the 10-year show, technically. And I'm already working on that, but it's going to be the last one of this series. So the Euge Holiday Show will be done next year because I want to evolve it.
Time to grow it. Okay. Yeah.
It's time to do something a little bit different, same sort of concept, but I'm looking for a team. Like I'm ready to do something that'll escalate it a little bit more, something to where, you know, I'm out of pocket. You know, bringing in people from LA is also very expensive.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's all out of pocket for me. I've partnered with Comic Town the past few years, and they've sponsored some of these shows, and that has really, really, really helped me out to get some of these people in. But that's it, between myself and them. That's the only financial compensation that kind of happens with that. And so I would eventually like to see something grow to where we can maintain, you know, doing really great things for the community, but also putting on a show twice a year that will be super, super freaking cool for everyone. Little known fact, and it's something that you don't really think about. I started doing the show in December, obviously, because of the holiday theme. And the older that I've gotten, the more skeptical I've become of like the holiday season. I don't like the holidays anymore because it's the one time everybody says, "Oh, give, 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 give." Mm-hmm. But then we're in the period now where it's summertime. It's really hot, and it's really not about, people aren't being generous in the summertime. And one of the leads at Faith Mission sat me down like 5 or 6 years ago and said, "We actually really need help in the summers." Because of that reason. She's like, we have all the help that we need. Like all the churches, everyone gives and donates everything, all their time. We have slots filled November and December. Everything's good. But once January hits, there's like nothing. And I think in the summertime, there's a lot of opportunity there for some events like on a larger scale to kind of help with that. But then also maintain the tradition of the December show, but in a different way. And I think that there's got to be other ways to contribute while they're able to be sustained by, just the holiday season, but really trickle that down into the times where they don't have that sustainability anymore right now in the summertime.
That makes complete sense when you explain it. But I wouldn't have thought about that.
I didn't either. I didn't either. And it really, it was almost kind of like a gut punch in a sense. Like, I'm totally guilty of that.
Yeah, you're like, wait, am I kind of a part of the problem a little bit? Not that giving is a problem, but
right.
But am I evolving the issue into something better? Am I helping making it less of an issue?
Right. Like, hey, there's a giant hole here. maybe we can pivot away from the popularity of the holiday.
Yeah.
Pivot away from that and perhaps attack this in a different way to where we can fill, gaps of need for entities.
Right, right. Let's take that idea of giving from just one area of time that it's always kind of been associated with. And let's see where else we can evenly spread that across.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It blew my mind. And it's like when you really think about it, you're like, oh, dude, yeah, because when you are young and you grow up, especially, growing up in the Christian religion when I did, it was, you start talking about Thanksgiving and you start talking about Christmas. It's all about giving back. Mm-hmm. In some of those things you think about, doing unto others as you want them to do to you. And it's all this peaceful time in a sense for some people, privileged people who, but like you don't show up. You really don't show up in the summertime. You're at the municipal pool, jumping around and having beers on your back patio and hanging out.
Right.
There's definitely a difference, and I think it's a big opportunity to try and change things.
Yeah,
differently.
Dude, that is awesome. I might be jumping the shark a little bit here, but I would love to somehow get involved with any of that. So if there's ever a way you could see me helping, even if it's just, I'm really good at being the idea guy. So if you need an idea guy, let me know. But that is awesome. Those are things that, and we can talk about more of this even like off pod, but that's a lot of stuff that I want to start slowly getting myself involved in and giving myself more purpose and all those sort of things. So if there's ever a way that I can fit into any of those plans, or help out even in the smallest way, like I don't know what I could. I couldn't get you somebody from LA to come in for it, but anything like that, dude, that is awesome, and I would love to somehow be a part of any of those things as you grow those things, especially with you trying to evolve it, which is like very interesting to me, and I'm like really excited to see what you do with that because I feel like it's gonna be rad.
I've got a lot of like floating ideas. I've got my concept. We'll talk after this thing, man.
I won't,
because you're an ideas guy, like you said, and I think that there's ways to make some things happen, and it's going to be something really, really interesting, really cool. And I really want to build on the knowledge that I've gained from doing these holiday shows and having these sweet spots and learning through this whole process. I want to do something and bump it up. Like we're going to go from a 5 to a 10 real fast. Mm-hmm. Like I want to take it there. And I think that it's the time to do that.
Yeah, dude, that is it. Well, I'm not going to ask you more questions about it so you have to like spoil anything here on the show. We'll wait till the time is right. So instead of asking you about what you're going to evolve it into, I'm instead going to ask you, because I don't remember, and I don't know if this was just a throwaway comment that you said, did you get Virgil on a show?
Yeah, I did. Dude.
What was it like hanging out with Virgil?
Man. So you know Virgil.
So I don't know if we've talked about this. I'm a gigantic wrestling fan.
Oh, okay. I think we touched on it briefly during Upholtergeist.
We might have. I also saw that you met Alexa Bliss, and I was like, that's so damn cool. That's so cool. Anybody who's not a wrestling fan right now on the podcast is like, oh my God, Ross is bringing up wrestling again. The fuck out of here. But yeah, so you met Alexa Bliss. That's so sick. That is the coolest thing, which is wild because she's from Columbus. So that's very fun.
Yeah.
But Virgil,
dude.
I'm aware of Virgil. So what was that like?
So this was I've loved every holiday show that I've done. They've all been unique in their own ways, and honestly, they've been unique to me personally because I book who I like. I don't necessarily book who, I book something that I want to see come to fruition because it's, at the end of the day, I'm like, this is my money that I'm spending. So I want to bring somebody who's nostalgic to me, and people will see that and go, Lori Beth Denberg's a good example. Like, who wouldn't want to meet Lori Beth Denberg from all that? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's crazy for me. So I think it was 2017. I'm pretty sure it was 2017. I started off this show by booking this guy from an old Nickelodeon TV show. I think they only did 4 or 5 seasons of this game show called Nick Arcade. Mm-hmm. Phil Moore was the guy who hosted Nick Arcade. I don't know if you remember this show at all.
So I vaguely do, and I add some extra memory to that because I recently watched the Nickelodeon documentary that dropped. Oh, have you watched that yet?
The Orange Years or something like that. Fantastic.
So that refreshed and also filled in because when Nickelodeon was just starting, I was also just starting in my life. Right, so a lot of these things are at the tail end of I joined, watching Nickelodeon when all the cartoons started to exist.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things were right in that gap where I'm I vaguely remember that, and the documentary was a refresher. But anyway, yes.
But yeah, so you would play video games basically, and you would wager points, and then you would be in the video game itself.
Yeah.
But it was just a green screen, and Phil Moore was the host. And I was just on YouTube, I was seeing that this guy was going to Comic-Cons, and they were he was doing Nick Arcade kind of mini games and stuff. And I remember thinking, okay, I want to book this guy. And I found him, reached out, he said, cool, we're going to do this. So I had Phil Moore booked, and we were going to do a Nick Arcade at Woodlands Tavern in Columbus. We're going to recreate this and have a little competition. And I was beyond words, so ecstatic. And I was like, you know what? I booked this so early, and I was able to pay for the flights and everything. I was able to get all that taken care of. And then I was like, you know what? I can book somebody else. I could probably book a NerdCore guy to come out to this show. And that's when I ran into Shaffer the Dark Lord. He's from New York. He's a NerdCore artist, and he's fantastic. I mean, if you've never listened to Shaffer the Dark Lord, do yourself a favor and go listen to his stuff. He is hilarious. He's brilliant. He's extremely intelligent, and his rhymes are just really fun. Reached out to him. He was down to do the show as well. So I was like, cool. This is the first time where I've had multiple. I call them celebrities, but multiple names on a bill now. So now it's Phil Moore from Nickelodeon, who hosted Nick Arcade, and Shaffer the Dark Lord. Fast forward a month out from the show. So this is November. And I had some friends flying in from all over the country. I think some were coming from Florida, from Washington, D.C., and then I had a group of friends coming out from Pittsburgh. And I was like, I wonder if I could get Lonely. I wonder what Lonely Virgil costs. I bet I could find him, and I did research. I finally found him. I found an email address at least. I found an email address on some blog somewhere, and I'm just this might be it. I have no idea. And just like everything else, I sent him an email. I was just hey, this is what's happening. Here's the event. This is the flyer's already been made. I was this happens in a month.
Not to interrupt your story, but I would be terrified to reach out to Virgil. Dude. Not because of celebrity status, but because I am aware of Virgil, and I'd be what is he going to say?
Dude. So we'll fast forward. He says yes. He doesn't want to fly. He's in Pittsburgh. He refuses to fly. He wants to come via Greyhound to save me money. Fucking cool. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dope. Comes out on a Greyhound. dude, the first, like, he gets, you follow Virgil on Instagram?
I follow along with Virgil's antics.
So you know about the Meat Sauce Mafia?
Yes.
And the love for Olive Garden? Dude, that was the first. I got him Olive Garden, and we brought him.
Oh, that's
we
so
brought
good.
him. We brought him. He got extra meat sauce on his spaghetti. We brought him to Woodlands, and dude, he was just like sitting there at a table, just smashing this. Like, we got him extra breadsticks, and he was just smashing this stuff. Next thing I know, the show's kind of rolling, and he's talking with my mom, and he was talking about like doing cocaine off of like stripper tits in Russia. And my mom is just like this, very petite, like,
she's like, "What's
super
fuck
Christian?"
money?
Right. She's like,
he keeps saying that.
right. What is fuck money? Thanks, Virgil. But he was literally having like these completely incredible conversations with everybody, and they're big wrestling fans who are just like, dude, I can't stand here while like he's talking. But he brought his whole setup, the Ted DiBiase and Virgil banner. He had that. He I bought my dad. No, he gave my dad an autographed picture of himself, which was awesome because Virgil
dope.
makes you pay for everything. So
Yes.
he did me a solid there. I will share a Virgil story that. No, I can't. I'll tell you. I can't. Look here. I can't tell you here. But it was. I've got a really good Virgil story that if you purchase the premium of this podcast for $109.99, you can hear the story as well.
There you go. And that's $109.
That's $109.99.
Yes. That's so. In general, though, that's so cool to hang out with Virgil all day, like, and just have fun being around that person, like wacky stories and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that would just be so fun to experience.
It was, dude. There were people that were trying to pay him to body slam him through a table at Woodlands.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, he obviously wouldn't do it, but yeah, I toured. I did like 3 show dates with Amy Dumas.
Really?
Back in my punk band days. Yeah, she was in a band she fronted a band called the Luchagores.
Yep.
And
that's so sick.
she stayed at my house.
Really?
She spilled red wine all over my mom's white carpet and then she went under the sink and pulled out dishwashing detergent and tried to clean it up, and it turned a red stain into a black stain.
Really? Okay. Well, now we're also learning some cleaning tips here. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so it was wild. And she was super wine drunk and talking about how Vince McMahon really helped screw up her back. So
that makes
him
sense.
pushing her to do all these things.
Yeah.
It was wild. She would do flips out into the crowd when her band performed.
Oh wow! So she was like
nuts.
she was even going hard for like band performances.
She was going hard for band performances,
That's so
jumping
cool.
off the stage, flipping. Like, it was, performing shows with them was just insane. I remember, this is such a good story. So drumming for that band, Overrated, fast street punk band. And we were at a show at Scully's. So we were playing our Columbus show, and Scully's was packed. No, it wasn't Scully's. It was Circus at the time, I think. That's what it was. It was Circus at the time. And the place was packed. We go on in like 30 minutes, and it was just us and then the Luchagores second. So it was going to be a quick flip, but we had 40 minutes to perform. And I, growing up super Christian, I never really smoked weed or drank or anything like that in those times. I was 21, so I was kind of like drinking now, but that's it. And her boyfriend was like the bass player, guitarist in the band, I can't remember. But they had a bowl packed, and we were out back, and they're like, "Hey, Ryan, like, you want to hit this?" So I can say I smoked weed with Lita.
Yeah, if Lita asks you to smoke
Right,
weed,
you
like,
do.
you don't say no.
But then I remember that night we were playing a new song, and it was like our opener. So it was like, you have when you're in a band, you've got the whole opening, ready to go. Like, there's going to be like, burn.
Here's
like,
our
you're gonna
build up.
you're going to ring out on the guitars, like, "Hey, motherfuckers," like, blah, blah, blah. Like the lead singers, they're giving their little spiel to the crowd.
What's
and
up,
as the
everybody?
drummer,
Ryan, just smoke weed.
as the drummer, I didn't tell anybody. I was scared.
Okay.
And I was supposed to do like a 3 count and then go into like this drum roll thing. And it was a brand new song again that we were debuting. And he did the ring out, ready for me to do the click. And I forgot the song. I forgot how it started. And my guitarist comes back and he's like, do the click. And I'm looking at him like, I fucking forgot the song, dude. I literally blanked. I was so stoned. And I'm like,
so good.
And I had no idea. That's what smoking weed felt like. So I'm like, here, there's probably 150 people at this show, and I'm killing the energy. And then like it came back to me. We got through it. We got through the whole set, and everything was good, and I'm feeling good about it. And then our guitarist, his name's Jeff, he pulled me outside, and he's just like, dude, what the fuck was up with you tonight? Like, we played that show so slow. And I was like, what? I felt like I was playing so fast. I smoked weed. He's like, you smoked weed with Lita? Then it was like a whole thing after that. And I'm like, yeah, that was probably, I mean, it was a good decision, but it was a very weird thing that kind of happened. Like, couldn't do it.
Dude,
couldn't do it.
That's such a unique story, though. That's so worth it.
Like, so worth it.
So worth it. That is incredible.
Yeah.
That's so much fun.
And I got, it's stories like that. You get to, fast forward years later, you're watching this person get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And I'm watching from home, and I'm just like, dude, I've got this connection with this individual. Like, we actually have a story, together. Yep. She's someone I can't get a hold of. I've tried to write her to kind of reminisce about that time, and it's like impossible to get a hold of her at this point.
Right. I feel like that almost makes that time frame more unique, though. That
Absolutely.
makes it such more of like a golden nugget of
Absolutely.
experience that it's like, yeah, I don't know. We're probably not gonna hang out again, and if we met again, she probably won't remember me, and that's just sort of whatever. But for that time frame, first time I smoked weed with Lita,
like, exactly.
That's the coolest
with Lita.
That's the coolest story. I would trade that for. I would be like, we might not ever see each other again, but this experience right now, I'll take that.
Yeah, we're good.
That's so fun.
When they stayed at my house. Yeah. This is going to be so weird, but you'll appreciate this. When they stayed at my house, they wanted to leave because their next tour date was in Pittsburgh. I booked them a show in Heath because we had a good music venue and we had a good draw in Heath. So we played the show. It was incredible, fun freaking show. They wanted to leave because there was going to be a snowstorm. They wanted to get out of town. And I was like, selfishly, I'm like, they always say that. I was like, they always say that. There's not going to be a snowstorm. You can stay for free at my place. Might as well crash now. And the whole band was like, dude, no. And Amy was like, come on, guys. Like, stay with them. It'll be fine. So when they came back to my place, I had the very first screener of ThanksKilling.
Oh, my God.
And, I mean, there was no CG. It was unfinished. It was an unfinished screener.
So this is during that time frame.
This is during
pre-ThanksKilling.
It had been filmed, but no one knew about it. This was before anything had come out. And I had this screener, and I popped it. I mean, it's incomplete, so it's completely boring. It was just, I was drunk, and I was like, oh, I want to get my rocks off, and I want to show them this thing that I was in. They all fell asleep except for Amy, who escaped to my mom's bedroom, who was drinking wine on the floor, which is when you hear, Ryan! And I run in and I see the wine and the dishwashing detergent. She's like, I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. I tried to clean it up. And I was like, oh, it's okay.
You're like, you're Lita. It's totally fine.
Yeah, like I'm not worried about it. Hey, it's good. We'll figure it out. I was thinking, like, I'm going to pull all the carpet up. I'm going to have to get someone to replace. I have no idea.
Yeah, you're like, this might be a big deal, but also it's fine.
My mom was trying to sell the house, so there was like barely any furniture there. So this was an issue. It was definitely an issue. It was like, oh shit, this is not good. But we'll figure it out.
Find a wrestling fan to sell the house to and be like, this is a Lita Weinstein right
now.
Yeah,
she did this. She did this.
Never sign it over time.
Right, like just sign this carpet square right here. Now, I should have kept it instead of cleaning it up. I should have cut a square out and like framed it.
There's wild wrestling fans on the internet that would buy that for like 10 grand.
Right.
Like 100%.
But nonetheless, yeah, so I forgot to tie in the ThanksKilling part of that story because that made everybody in the band fall asleep.
Because
it was terribly boring at that point. Yeah.
Wow.
A weird thing.
Dude, those are such layers of your life all joining up. That's like, I feel like you couldn't make that up. Like that's one of those classic like, really, and then really, and then wait, really, like just layering up on top of each other.
Yeah, it's some weird stuff.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That is so wild. Okay. So you're doing the band thing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the holiday show and all that sort of stuff. When does I know you said in like high school and in theater you loved being funny and stuff. When does comedy become like a part of your life outside of just like, hey, I'm joking with my group of friends?
Sure. So personally, I enjoy like older stand-up comedy, and there's some stand-up comedy that I can find now that I do enjoy. But really, it was my best friend at the time decided he wanted to do comedy, and he wanted to do stand-up, and I'm like, dude, I got your back. I'll go to shows, like whatever you need, I am there for you for whatever. And that kind of evolved, and that's where I wanted to put, hey, if I'm going to book a show, why can't we have entertainment in between bands? Let's have some comedians come up and perform in between bands. Learned real quick that that's not the best thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things when you book comedians in between. Don't do it. If you're a promoter and you're ever thinking about booking comedians in between bands, don't do it. Figure out something else. But I wanted to expose him and help him, get some exposure like at a non-comedy show. I wanted to see, hey, will this work? And so that's kind of how it started. I booked him and a gentleman by the name of Zachariah Baird on my very first holiday show. And they both performed, I think it was like 20-minute sets. It was unreal, super long sets for a little local show kind of thing, in a standing room only venue. Very different. That was really my first dabble into it. And then from there, I worked at a Japanese restaurant called Otani. They were trying to save the business, and I booked some comedy shows, with seeing my friend Jeff get involved in these comedy shows and booking him on some of these shows. I learned about a lot of local comedians. I got to like, Nick Glasser. There's so many local comedians. Danny Stratton, Amber Falter. But yeah, I would throw these shows, and these guys would get booked, and we'd put on this show at Otani, a comedy show, and that was really it. It was really to push my friend Jeff at the time, to kind of help him out, since it's just me putting together a lineup and promoting. And hey, Ryan, you put together a good lineup. I'd ask, like, Jeff, who should I get on the show? Oh, you should ask, like, Derek Muhammad. You should ask, Zach Cover. He was in the scene for a little bit. And I would put this thing together. Oh, there were some younger comedians who wanted to give it a shot. Brian Doney, rest in peace. He was on quite a few of my shows as well. And yeah, it was totally a different thing for me. I was going to drop the comedy element from the holiday show for a long time, but there were so many people that enjoyed that, because I still wasn't sure if it really fit the music scene. When you go see a show and you have, naturally, when a band is done, that's your cigarette break, and it's time to go to the bar to get the beer.
Right.
So when you have a comedian go on, you almost screw them because everyone's leaving. And then if you're an audience participant who actually values the time of the person on stage, you're like, man, I couldn't get my cigarette in, or I couldn't go get my beer and wait in that line. And now that you're done, and now the band's coming on, so I don't have a rest period. So we've changed. Now it's a comedy block, so it's like an hour of comedy. So it's pivoted to where it's its own thing, and you still have those gaps, and that's actually worked out really well. But people do enjoy the comedy; they enjoy the live music kind of combined. But that's really the only reason I've dabbled into it. I've met so many people in the comedy scene through those couple shows that I worked on with Jeff. That's really it.
Well, and that's so interesting, because I feel like comedy is it's a thing that I relate or like associate with you a lot.
Really?
I really do. And it might be because I got introduced to you via ThanksKilling,
sure,
this
sure.
wacky, silly, comedic horror movie, but and I obviously seeing you do the shows, I also assume, you've never done stand-up or anything, no comedy of your own. I think I assumed that you did.
I hosted a couple shows without really knowing what a host is supposed to do at comedy shows. I thought I could wing it and be okay. And I tried to tell a joke once, and I know what it feels like to have no one laugh at you. And that was it. After that moment, I was like, dude, I am done. I tried to tell a joke, and it was was funny to me, but it was not funny to anybody else. And I knew it made me gain so much respect for comedians, because I've learned so much, like how much work it is to write, these jokes, and having to trial them at open mics. It's a whole freaking process that on the surface you don't know about. You don't really think about all of this stuff. And, some of the funniest people I know are like some of the saddest people I know too. There's some people have an expectation when it comes to comedians where, oh, you're the funny guy. Like, haha, you're the funny guy.
Tell us a joke, bro.
Tell us a joke. Yeah. And it's just so, it's like actually like really sad. It's like, dude, there's some, that's kind of like a job, like your job is to make people laugh. But then once you walk off that stage, like it's not your job to be that guy anymore. Like you just want to hang out and chill. You don't want to be telling jokes. You're not necessarily the life of the party. Maybe you don't even like being at parties. You just
Right. It's also the classic case of like you are doing something to entertain people and make them feel good, even if when you're done doing that, you're actually like, I don't feel that great at all.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's like you're giving so much of yourself to hopefully make sure that these people watching you have a good night, even if you're having a terrible night. Like it is like you have to, you're putting on some sort of a face to be like, okay, I'm doing this for these people. And yes, like I'm sure, like most people who do comedy are doing it because they enjoy doing it, but there are those hard parts of, yes, they're doing it for themselves, but they really hope that these people are happy at the end of their set.
Right.
And then you walk off stage and it can be like, I probably don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to sit and tell more jokes because this was all the work I put in to do it here. I'm not that person all the time.
Right. And I think comedians stand separately from like, because that's just a problem with the arts in general, actors, especially musicians. I think you see a lot of feedback on, but comedians, they're the funny ones, so they're always making you feel good by laughing. So you have that expectation. Where you have, musicians obviously do the same thing. And one thing that like pains me all the time, especially working with some celebrities and whatnot. And, when I worked for Riot Fest for a few years, I got to work with a lot of musicians there. But it's like, you hear these stories like, oh, I met so-and-so, and they were such an asshole. And it's like, and they're like really bitter about it. Like, oh, like, don't go meet blah-de-blah because he's a dick. Because they had one interaction where it was like, dude, like, get away from me. You have no idea. They may have just gotten off the phone hearing about a relative passing. Like, you have no idea what they're going through. They're on the road. They can't stop the tour and go to a funeral. Like, they got they're on tour. So you have no idea. And I hate seeing those things. Oh, I had a great experience with so and so. Well, mine was terrible. It's like, dude, like, if you're like, I'm all about like hanging out the back door, trying to grab your story, get a fist bump, being able to thank somebody. That's a huge thing. Being able to thank somebody for being a part of your life. It's just, it's definitely very selfish because, celebrities hear it all the time, but it's like being able to say that to someone is very, very cool. So I have no problem with folks kind of waiting for someone to come out of a stage door or, hang out, backstage somewhere to try and catch a fist bump or just to say a few words. But it's when you start like, wow, he was like a dick to me, and saying that in public forums, it's just kind of like, share your story, but understand. Always follow that up with, hey, you know what he's going through, but that was my experience. Because that's hard. That's hard on a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to remembering that they're human.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Like
exactly.
That. Even in my sense, where I'm like, I don't want to bug them and reach out to them and see if they would want to be on What You Don't Hear podcast because I'm like, oh, they probably got so much going on. But you also have to remember, well, they're human beings. So one, you can talk to them, but also they have emotions and feelings and thoughts and worries and wonders and everything else. And I'm sure there's probably a list of people that I would love to have on the show that I'm too afraid to reach out to because I'm like, oh, no, they're a celebrity. There's no way that I could talk to them. Maybe they'd be super excited to share their story. I don't know. You know what I mean? Because they're a human being.
Yeah.
Like, they're a human being.
Yeah.
So even you thanking them of like, hey, thank you for not only, being a part of my show or meeting me or whatever, but thank you for being a part of my life because you brought joy in this part of my life or whatever. Like, that's a rad exchange. That's a very cool exchange of energy and time and an experience.
Yeah.
So it is weird when it's like I tried to say hi to them and they got all pissy. It's like also like that they don't owe you anything.
They don't owe you anything. Exactly. Like they owe you nothing.
No, they don't owe you anything. And sure, it would be awesome if every interaction with every human being all the time was cool and positive. And yes, it is a weird feeling if you're going to, meet this celebrity, maybe idol or somebody that again was a part of your life. So you're expecting this, you probably have this dream scenario where you're like, oh my God, you're so awesome. And they're like, you're awesome. Want to freaking do my new show with me on Nickelodeon? Like,
right.
And then you ride off into the sunset on a unicorn. Like,
right.
You picture it that way. But then if you go up to that person, you're thinking you're going to be able to lay out this whole thing to them and get more of their time so you can tell them everything you feel about them or get them to sign 100 things or whatever. It's like, dude, like they're a human being.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to think like in the same way that maybe you at your, 9 to 5, maybe you don't want to get bothered by your boss every 5 minutes and just let me live.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the same thing with celebrity. They don't always have to be on for you. They don't always have to be in character for you. Like, I'm sure you've heard the stories, being a wrestling fan of like, wrestlers getting bombarded in airports by people who don't even want to meet them for the factor of like, oh my God, human to human, like I'm excited to meet you. You hear all these stories of them getting bombarded by like eBay sellers who are just like, here's like 28 by 10s of you that I need you to sign so I can sell them on eBay and make money. And it's like, dude, like, hey, I guess respect the hustle, but also like, that's such a like weird thing.
That's a very weird thing.
Like you are putting these people on this like awkward pedestal, not the I respect you pedestal and like it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
But the like, give me some of your blood so I can go, you know what I mean? Like sign this thing so I can go sell it for $500. Like, that's such a weird, and you hear all those sort of stories and it's like, well, man, like, and then just like you said earlier, to bring it back, those people who, just using the wrestler example of like, those people who would go up to somebody at 3 a.m. while a wrestler's trying to catch a flight so they can go home for the first time in a month, they get shunned by that wrestler who's like, dude, I cannot fucking sign 20 of your photos. Then that person does what? They go and they tell this, well, I met so-and-so and he was a dick or she was an asshole. Like, don't meet them. And it's like, no, maybe you were the problem.
You are, like, you were the problem. Like, it was, it's cringy. I've gotten into autograph collecting during the pandemic because I wanted something neat, and I'm very picky about what I purchase and from where I purchase. But I've joined a couple like autograph groups because I wanted to kind of see what that, I don't give a shit what anybody else gets, but I wanted to see what those people were like. I wanted to just kind of
experience the culture.
Yeah, dude. It's exactly what you said. Like,
really?
Hearing stories about these people, I didn't pay to go to the show. I didn't buy any merch, but I waited around backstage and I politely, they're positioning these things like I'm the victim because someone got pissed off. Like, like their manager came over and said, "Piss off, dude. Like, get the fuck out of here." And it's like, dude, you didn't pay for a ticket, one. You didn't buy any merch, two, and you're expecting them to give you an autograph.
You're not supporting them in any way.
Right, and they're the ones giving you something that you could technically later turn around and sell for, $50, $100, whatever. It's going in your collection.
Right.
But it's doing something to enhance your life.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do shit to like enhance theirs. You see that stuff all the time, and I had to leave the group because I was that one guy who was like, you're not a good like autograph collector. You haven't been around. I was like, dude, I'm not about that hustle. Like, you're like a paparazzi, dude. Like, that's what you guys are.
Oh,
you guys
very
are
similar, yeah.
Yeah, you guys, I purchase from they do like table signings, So like there's a company that'll say, oh, hey, celebrity, sit down at this table. Here's the people who ordered, sign these personal. Like, it's a setup thing. It's not like that on the fly. I'm not about that.
Right.
Other than Taylor Hicks signing my only copy of ThanksKilling. It was my ThanksKilling screener. I got Taylor Hicks, who was an American Idol, to sign it. He was like, what the hell is this? He played the harmonica. He's forgotten. He's long forgotten, but that was a weird thing. But that was the only time I asked for an autograph from somebody.
I'm so, and I know I said this earlier about like, I feel weird about reaching out to anybody of any celebrity status to do anything with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever experienced this with the autograph stuff or especially with all the event stuff you do trying to connect with people. I have such a strange view on how I want to meet people. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about like quality time. I hugely value like genuine connection with people. That doesn't mean like we're best friends or we fall in love or whatever. Like, I'm just saying, like, I feel uncomfortable if I were that person who's like chasing somebody down the airport for a quick like, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I would rather just like see the person from afar and be like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
And it's not because I'm like worried about coming off as like a weird fanboy or something, but I value connection with somebody so much that I'm like, you know, I can clearly see where my bar is of how I want to experience and interact with other human beings.
Yeah.
That I know that just like many people's idea of meeting a celebrity is they hire you for the next movie and you ride off over the rainbow on a unicorn. Mine isn't that, but it's more so like, if I'm going to meet somebody, I want it to be under the right circumstances where I know that we are in the same place at the same time mutually, and there's a mutual understanding. So like you getting to sit and meet people that you have for the holiday show, that's the perfect scenario to sit and get to know somebody or just be around somebody because they are also there for the same reasons that you're there. So you know you already have that bridge of connection of like, yeah, we're both on equal footing. We're both human beings. I have such an awkward, like, I have refrained from going and meeting people, and maybe I'm missing out on some fun. I don't know, but like, I have refrained from ever attempting to go meet somebody because I know it's going to be like kind of inauthentic based off of like what I really want out of that exchange.
Yeah.
You know, like if I can ever get, you know, the day that I get anybody, and what is celebrity to who, you know, but we know what we're talking about when we say celebrity. If I ever get a celebrity on the show, that's best case scenario. Not because, I got cool name value for the podcast, but they know why they're sitting down. We are here for a mutual reason, and we are about to connect over conversation.
Yeah.
That's the best way to, like,
yeah.
I've recently, thanks to like two of my best friends, like I started going to horror conventions.
Okay,
like
nice.
Finally, for the first time in like years, after being biggest horror fan ever.
I need to hear all about this.
So, well, it's actually going to be not that fun a story.
Oh no!
But it's like it deals with the whole like celebrity thing, where like you go to these horror conventions and there's all these people lined up at their merch booths. Yeah. They're like, "Yo, if you want to come up and get a picture, you want to come up and like," and maybe honestly, maybe you could have some advice to talk me out of this. I don't know, but like. I talk myself out of getting in any of these lines because it feels so fabricated to me in my experience. I'm not saying that no one should go meet people or pay to get a picture or that is awesome. 100% do that. But for my human experience, I have such this problem, such this wall that I'm like, you know what? I would love to talk to Matthew Lillard.
Yes.
But I feel so weird waiting in a line of 300 people that are also doing the same thing and getting a minute with him, even if that minute is fun, because the two friends that have gotten me into going to these, they've met him, they've talked to him, and it was such a genuine fun interaction that they now have as an experience in their lives. And I hear it and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But again, I know where my bar is, where I'm like, you know, I'm not expecting to have like a 3-hour conversation with him.
Yeah.
But somewhere in my mind, I'm just like, this just feels so weird because I'm meeting him on this pedestal of, I waited in line. And, please, sir, can you sign my shirt? Or, ma'am, can you get a picture with me? And
the cattle are waiting. You're in a cattle line. Moo.
Yes.
Cool. And you're and they're doing. It's like it always reminds me of the original Space Jam. The Monstars win the game and they entrap Michael Jordan. And do you remember that scene? He's
Vaguely.
writing autographs. He's just got a line of people, and all he's doing is writing autographs and throwing them. Like if the Monstars won, if the Monstars won that game, they were going to entrap Michael Jordan, and that was his life. But what we have to remember though too is these celebrities want to be there. This is big money. I mean, they make a killing doing these things. What I was tickled to death with what you were saying because I feel the exact same way, which is why, you know, I've done a plethora of like horror conventions as a guest, so I know what it's like. Like no one, I don't have lines at my table. I have like the random guy who's like, "Oh shit, you're here? Cool. I've seen this movie." But like, I don't like that either for the exact same reasons that you say. Like, how, like, I'm waiting in this line and this is just, I feel almost dirty. Like, and you're looking at the people that are around you and they're all saying the same shit. Like, what am I going to do to stand out? And I'll tell you a story, because I did something with my sister a few years ago, and it changed my perspective on doing that in the future. And maybe this will help you, but it was about making, when you say you have that 1 minute, 30 seconds, you have that one moment, own it. Think about it and make that moment yours. And what I mean by that is I traveled to a city right outside of Detroit for a little Great Lakes con. I feel weird saying like con. I feel like that's just a weird niche that I don't, I'm not into that kind of group or like attending these things. But I went to that because the original cast of Sesame Street was going to be there. The late Carol Spinney was also there. And I like, he's like OG Big Bird, like Gordon and, all the Luis, all these guys from Sesame Street. I was like, dude, this is never going to happen again. So I want to give this a shot. And it's not one of those Wizard World conventions where they hide everyone and you actually do have that truly 30 seconds and it really is like a Michael Jordan signing and move on thing. These are more open. Like, you can see everyone sitting at their tables. It's easier to approach folks. But I waited in a line to meet someone, and I started singing one of the songs I knew from my childhood with him. And it was, "Who are the people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood?" And as I started singing it, he grabs my hands, and he starts singing it with me. And we're just looking at each other in the eye and just having this real moment. And the whole, like, everyone in line started singing it with us. And that was my, like, okay, that's something I'm never going to forget. And that was my moment to kind of do something. Carol Spinney, at the time, he was in a wheelchair, and he couldn't really talk, and he was wearing thick sunglasses. And I whispered in his ear, I said, "Hey, the ABCDEFG song, that helped me learn the alphabet," and I started singing it in his ear. And he started laughing. And then he, like, squeezes my hand really hard. And, it's little things like that I learned in that moment. I was like, I want to, while I don't appreciate what some cons do, because it does feel like that with certain celebrities and the way that people act. I love the conventions. I love that people put together these things with celebrities to make them accessible to the public. What I don't like how the public talks and treats these people as though they're not humans. But I think it's about, if you want to meet Matthew Lillard, book your ticket, get in there, and have that idea. Have your email address on a piece of notebook paper and slide it to him. And just have that moment with him. Hey, this is who I am. This is why I like you. This is why I think you're fantastic. I do this, and I would love to have you be a guest sometime. I'd like you to genuinely think about it. This is my email address. I would love to hear from you. And give it a slide. Dude, that's better than sending him you never know. That's not a guaranteed hit. But create that moment. Say something unique that no one else is going to say, and give them a way to reach out to you. I would bet my bottom dollar that these guys would reach out. Especially if you make that moment genuine and you do something cool. Wait in that line, do the cattle call, but own it and make it yours. And I think that the opportunities are truly endless when it comes to that.
Yeah, dude.
Just try. I think that there's a moment there that you could potentially be missing out on because who knows no one knows what'll happen next. Maybe he doesn't ever show up for a convention again. Maybe he's never going to be accessible, or that individual you're going to reach out to. Try it, go, own it, but make it yours and think strategically about what you're going to say.
Yeah, dude, you just made all of that sound like you made that make so much sense. I feel like you literally just gave me like so much confidence in that, and the stories you just told, literally, like you gave me cold chills. Like, dude, I appreciate that. That is
those
great.
Moments, man. I would have never met Carol Spinney if I didn't go to that thing. I would have never had that moment where he acknowledged me by squeezing my hand. I would have never been able to sing a song that I sang when I was 3 years old, with an OG castmate, from Sesame Street. I mean, that's crazy town. Like, what?
Yeah.
And that happened. Like, hands, like eye contact, like having that moment. It was wild, man. Bob's his name. Bob was the shopkeeper. But yeah, do it, man. Like, go. I mean, I wouldn't. And if it's like one of those big Wizard World things, that's where I change my, like, those I would say don't even waste your money because you're going to pay, what, like $100 just to get in the doors. And then you're probably going to have to pay another $150 after waiting in a 3-hour line. And they have someone literally there, like, on a stop clock. Like, you don't really have.
Right.
Go to something, like, the horror cons are typically a lot smaller and way more chill on those kinds of things. So, dude, I would say definitely give it a shot. Just do it.
Yeah.
You're there. You're working. It's like, consider yourself. You're there to work. You're not there to fanboy over everybody. You're not there to buy a bunch of shit from the vendors that are there. You're there with one sole purpose. Here's the guy I want to meet. Here's the guy I want to be in contact with. Like, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then you never know. You may catch him when he's running for his, food in the green room. Maybe he's got a chicken sandwich he's going to be eating in public with everybody all by himself because everyone's afraid to approach people. Mm-hmm. People are afraid to approach people when they're kind of like, who knows? Maybe you just happen to be sitting in that same vicinity. You just never know with those things because they're much smaller. So
yeah. Damn it. I
do
needed
it, dude.
to hear that.
Carpe diem. Just do it, man.
I needed to hear that.
You should. You definitely should.
Okay, so you've had all these like cool experiences that you've put yourself in, whether it's at your own event or whether you're doing all these things. Like, was that always? And I know this is a weird question, but was any of this that you're doing like the trajectory that you tried to put yourself on? Like, let's say like fresh out of high school, like the moment in time where everybody's kind of got to decide like. And anybody can change at any point in time. Like you can always change your life at any moment in time.
Yeah.
But when we think back to those like high school, like young adult, all that sort of stuff is when you're making all those decisions of like, am I going to college? Am I jumping in the workforce? Am I chasing the dream? Am I, what am I doing? What was that for you? Like, were you picturing like, I want to do events and I want to do music and freaking all these sort of things. Like I need to meet awesome celebrities, or were you like, I have no fucking clue what I'm going to do.
Oh, dude, I still don't know what I want to do. I'm 35, and it's like I've been trapped in that, like, I have no idea where I'm going to fit or what I want to do. I work the 9 to 5. I'm grateful to have a career right now, but it's like when I was in high school, I had a choice between going to Otterbein University on a full ride for theater or going to Ohio University paying full price for video production. And I chose to go to Ohio University for video production because I didn't want to be the theater kid anymore. I was like, I know, I didn't want to, and I'm from Heath, so a graduating class of 100. So I was like, always, I was the lead. I pretty much got what I wanted. And then to be in a university for theater where, I was going to, the biggest reality check of my life. I didn't want to take that risk. I was too nervous to be thrown in with all that. So I chose video production. I ended up dropping out. I didn't want to go to school anymore. I didn't like it. So I started my 9 to 5. I worked at a corporate job for like 11, 12 years doing this stuff on the side. I still don't know. Like, I don't know what I want to do. I'd probably have to go back to school if I wanted to get something in, if I wanted to work, work with a venue or anything like that, do marketing for anybody, do, talent buying. Those are all things that I could do, but I know that they definitely require a degree, and I've only got a year and a half behind my belt. And I am stubborn, and it's so hard for me to focus and do classwork. I don't like sitting down and having to do classwork. So that's all on me. But yeah, I still have no idea what I want to do.
Right.
That's why it's like, hey, work the corporate job, get your paycheck, and I can do anything I want with my own time. Hence, hey, if one of these projects takes off, which you and I both know living in internet age, anything can happen at any time. Anything can blow up. It just depends on the right person seeing it. And the right person feeling a certain way about it. It can go a certain way.
Yeah.
So you just never know. That's why I like doing all this stuff on the side.
Right. Well, I think maybe even to argue your point a little bit, I almost feel like you are doing those things. And it's not necessarily you're fitting in of like, yes, I have the name tag of event coordinator or show promoter and I work at this place or I do this or my events are millions of dollars. Like, because just from an outside perspective, yes, we're friends. We mainly keep up via the internet. From an outside perspective, that's why I wanted to sit down with you, because I see
Thanks,
all the things you're doing. And yes, it's kind of that like, behind the veil sort of thing. We all know what we each do every single day of our lives that most other people don't.
Yeah.
So I understand we view ourselves differently, but from an outside perspective, I would argue that I feel like you are doing all of these things. And if it's supported via, a 9 to 5, and yes, who knows when something could pop off or whatever, but also like if you're satisfied and happy and having fun with all these things, then I would argue that that's like, well, yes, things are always going to grow.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't have to find the specific label of like,
yeah,
oh yeah, the Euge Holiday Show or whatever it soon becomes is the biggest event in Columbus and thousands of people go. You said that's not even what you want it to be.
Right.
It just needs to be a certain level of success. And I also feel like I'm kind of contradicting myself because I feel like I'm probably telling you a lot of things that I also need to be told. It's a classic case of like, yeah, you're great at giving other people advice, but you can't take it.
No, I hear that, man.
But I feel like, again, just from an outside perspective, like I see all those things and I'm like, dude, I feel like one of the busiest people I know. And you could sit and be like, dog, I'm busy once a year for my event. Like,
right.
But I feel like, again, it's just that's even why I asked that question of, what did you see your trajectory being or what did you want to try and do? Because I love when I see people chasing multiple goals.
Yeah.
Whether it's making music for fun or playing shows or doing stand-up or hosting or putting on events or figuring out how you can grow those events and get more involved in the community. Like, you're doing multiple different things.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're just kind of sitting around and being like, I have no freaking clue where I'm, you're fitting in your own way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, this is advice that I am terrible at reminding myself of, but like, I think that's a thing that we all need to remember is like, yes, we're always going to want more.
Yeah.
We always going to, I want this podcast to be on the level of freaking Joe Rogan podcast, right?
Right.
However, I do have to reel myself in and realize that the conversations I'm having and the people that do listen to this show, there's still a value there.
Sure. Yeah.
It exists.
For sure.
And I think you actually said you listened to his episode. My friend Ehab, who was on recently, he said something in his episode that put a lot of this stuff in perspective for me. That like I literally feel like ingrained in my brain after I talked to him. And he mentioned that I can't remember the song names exactly, but he said that there was never a song that existed and sounded like or was called X song name before I created it. And when he said that, I was like, damn.
Yeah, that's really true.
You're right.
Yeah.
Like, yes, everything that we make, we want it to be this huge thing. And especially in the nature of viral social media, you see stupid things get a lot of attention sometimes. But it's, the whole argument of not getting caught up in that and not comparing yourself and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But when he said that, it's like that's something I feel like I keep trying to remind myself of. It's, again, I would love for this podcast to be gigantic. But also, this conversation you and I are having right now, yeah, we could have had it over coffee somewhere, and we still would have experienced it, but maybe this exact conversation wouldn't have existed. And the people that are listening to this right now or watching it wouldn't know that we ever had this conversation or wouldn't be getting to know you if they never knew you before. Or all these sort of things like a show called What You Don't Hear with a bright yellow logo and all this sort of stuff did not exist before I created it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he said that about his songs, it really put a lot of it in perspective of like, we always want more. We always want it to be super successful, but you have to check yourself in sometimes, reel yourself back of like, I'm creating something or I did create something and it still has made some sort of an impact. The show, the events that you do, the charity events, there are homeless people who got jackets.
Yeah.
Who might not have gotten jackets.
Yeah.
If you didn't do that show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're exactly right. It's you don't think about those things.
Right.
That's so true.
And I'm terrible at thinking of those things. Don't let me get on like the high horse here of like Mr. Positivity. Like I don't think of these things all the time. I am bad at reminding myself. But yes, like it is that perspective piece. And I know I just took us on a huge side tangent there.
It's beautiful though. It's beautiful because that's like anybody that creates anything. I wanted to share a story that kind of went along with, reaching out, to people, but then also having that creation thing. This was something that really kind of happened to me that was really beautiful over the past year and a half, which was the darkest days for everybody, literally, right? So I had a young man reach out to me on Instagram. His name's Matteo. He's from England, 18 years old at the time, and huge ThanksKilling fan. He reached out to me on Instagram and sent me a message like, "Hey, I really love ThanksKilling. Hey, like, how's it going? Just something really simple." And reached back out to him. We started having some conversations. He's like, holy shit, like this guy like responded, and I've had that interaction, in the early days, and obviously people aren't really like knocking down my door to say, "Oh my God, thanks." That doesn't really happen anymore. So it was very unique for him, I believe, based on his reactions. And there are times during the pandemic, I'll never forget. He's in England, so I woke up at like 7 a.m, and I was making myself some Spam and eggs for breakfast. I was frying along, and I remember going live on Instagram. I was bored. I think it was April, so it was still kind of new when the lockdown was happening. Matteo was awake, obviously, because it was like the afternoon over there. And him and I went live. I brought him onto my IG Live, and we were just like talking. Like, he's younger, and we were just kind of shooting the shit back and forth. And I said, "Dude, ask me anything you want. Like, let's just hang out. I'm making Spam and eggs." And that's kind of what we did. We just were shooting the shit, and he's like really excited. But that was the beginning of this really interesting relationship. So he disappeared for a while. Didn't talk, like, because we were kind of talking every week or so. I did some voice-over work for he's in college, so he's like a freshman in college. Did some voice-over work for one of his projects. Like, he was really excited for that. Kind of what I would have to assume is the same feeling of me reaching out to some of these other celebrities. And so I did some of this voice work for him, and it was just really fun for me. Kind of like what you were saying, like, you're recognized for something, and it's bringing someone else a whole lot of joy for something that you did a while ago. And as I'm learning more about Matteo, I find out that he's in school for animation. And then I start to see, like he shares with me his animation Instagram, and I'm looking at some of these things that he's doing, and they're sick. It's like Silly Incorporated, I think, is his Instagram tag. I'll have to get it to you so you can put it on the website.
Yeah.
But it's like old school 90s Nickelodeon animation, right? Like your Ren and Stimpy, your Rocko's Modern Life, Real Monsters. Like it looks like that, and I'm just like, dude, your shit is sick, man. This is gnarly. Like, have you ever? I was like, I just recorded some new music for Huge. I put out the Bad Rapper EP, and he's like, I've never done anything. I mean, I've just you remember being that young, and you've never really done a project yet. It's always been like little things that you've done on your own, just figuring your stuff out. And I was like, dude, I'll tell you what, man, I'll hire you to do a music video for me. And he was just like, hell yeah, like I want to do that. I want to do a music video for you. He wouldn't, he wouldn't accept any compensation, which I remember when I was that age, I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, dude, I'll do this shit for free. But I was like, okay, well, we'll have a little, I got him some awesome gifts that I mailed to him to compensate him for that. But it took him like 4 months. It took him a really long time. He had no idea what he was getting into. But he completed a full-fledged music video for a song called Callie the Cat for me. And it is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I've never had a music video done, and this kid knocked it out of the park. He's getting emails from MC Lars now, who's one of the top MCs in the NerdCore game, saying, yeah, I want your contact info. Like, I love this stuff. And this kid, like, I'm not even kidding you, man. Like, he's full of drive, and he's so talented with doing animation. I would do anything to put his name out there to get him more work, because he deserves freaking everything. The kid is so good. I'll have to show you this.
Please
this music
do,
video.
yeah.
It's hilarious. He has this incredible sense of humor, and his animation style is beautiful. So yeah, you'll appreciate the video. It's fantastic. But I wanted to throw that out there, because if it wasn't for him reaching out like that to me, I would have never known of his existence. But then that, through conversation and him hitting me up, that created this bond. As I learned more about him, I was like, dude, well, let's work together. Let's do something. Let's create something together. And I wrote the music and I wrote the song, and then he created this beautiful piece of animation. We've never met, and he lives in England. I just think that is the craziest thing.
Yeah.
To me. Absolutely absurd.
And the fact that all spawned from ThanksKilling.
From ThanksKilling. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, it's what it comes down to.
I mean, that's why we know each other.
That's why we know each other. Exactly.
I don't know if we would have met had I not been part of a podcast called Poltergeist where we want to talk about crazy horror movies.
Yeah.
And then found out like, what the heck? We can get one of the dudes from the movie on to talk about it like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's wild,
and that
man.
all spawns from. Okay, so we would be remiss if we did not do some ThanksKilling talk.
Yeah,
in this.
sure. Yeah.
So I want to hear like how much fun like has that and experiences like that has that given to your life? Like this wacky independent like comedy horror movie crazy like cult following on the internet sort of thing. Like I feel like that's given you so many cool experiences like that.
Oh yeah, I mean like ThanksKilling's given me so much. And it's like a lot of people would look at it and go, okay, whatever. But it's just the simple fact that someone will buy a plane ticket for me and put me up in an Airbnb or a hotel just to sit in a chair. I mean, signing autographs for people is still like really strange for me. And charging for it is even stranger. But that's life-changing. Just to say, like, those conventions have kind of come and gone. I'm not as persistent as trying to do those things as I used to be. But having done some of those, I have met some of the coolest people. Huge shout out to Sacramento Horror Festival in Sacramento. They've booked me a couple times. They work extremely hard. Tim and Brian put on such a wonderful show, and they have a bunch of great help out there. That's where I hung out and drank with Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp. That was wild. In a mermaid bar, there was literally a tank of water, and there were mermaids every like 30 minutes that would swim around this tank. I don't know. It was really bizarre, but yeah, it was a crazy night with a horror icon like Felissa Rose, like so gnarly. And I've been to somewhere, I sat with Diamond Dallas Page and Jake the Snake Roberts, and they almost got into a fist fight with the Red Ranger Rocky from Power Rangers because they took his table. It was, it was like a TMZ moment. I literally, like, Jake the Snake was up in the Red Ranger's face, and I was like, Red Ranger versus Jake the Snake. We're gonna see who goes through the table first. Like, this is gonna be nuts. And I mean, just being able to be present at these things and meet these people and have these conversations. Like, I can say Diamond Dallas Page's wife, they were so pissed off at this convention. I was going to go buy a hot dog. She's like, don't fucking give them money. Here's a Kind bar. Handed me my very first Kind bar and said, this is your lunch. Don't spend any money here. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So, like, okay.
Yeah,
But life-changing, man. ThanksKilling like really did some cool things for me.
So how did it come up? And I know, again, I think we probably touched on this in the Poltergeist episode. Again, That was like 97 years ago at this point. How does ThanksKilling pop up? When does it pop up for you?
So, I mean, Jordan Downey and I went to high school together. He was a grade above me. So we actually made a student film together. Like, he was a senior and I was a junior in high school. We filmed this short film, and it was really fun, but we did a whole red carpet thing at the high school. Like, it was a lot of fun. You're two kids in high school just dicking around. And then he goes off to film school in Los Angeles, and I go to Ohio University. Years down the road, he's in his senior year, and he's visiting home, I think, for the holidays or something. I can't quite remember. I'm getting to that age now where it's like I don't remember really timelines, but I know that he was like close to his senior year, and he meets me at a Jolly Pirate Donuts. And he hands me this script, and it says ThanksKilling on it. And he says, kind of wrote this thing, because we love bad horror movies and everything. And he showed me this script. He's like, reading through it. I was like, this is freaking fantastic. This is so great. Like, I love it. He's like, well, I wrote the nerd with you in mind. Would you like to play this role? And I was like, dude, yeah. And then it was like, oh, well, we're going to shoot in like a week, or it was like a week and a half. It was something very quick. he said, I need to cast these 2 roles. And I remember being in Jolly Pirate Donuts. Like, I was like, oh, I've got some theater people. I started calling people like Lindsay Anderson, who was Kristen, the good girl. Called her up. I was like, hey, shooting this movie called ThanksKilling. Would you want to be in it? And like, oh, okay, let me ask my mom. Like, like all that whole thing, like crazy. I mean, adults, but we're still living at home kind of thing. And, and then it just happened. Then I think we shot for 3 weeks. I mean, it was really fast. It was very fast. A lot of sleepless nights, but it happened quickly. And then him and Kevin Stewart, we met. He was the producer, director of photography. They left as soon as they came in, shot it. Cool, thanks guys. Left. It was for a student film. It was a senior project for them to film a movie, I believe. I don't quote me on that 100%. Jordan would be able to tell you more. And then it was like a year later, a couple years later, we got sent the screener copies, like so we could kind of watch it, but it wasn't finished. And then we got the final copies later. And before we knew it was on Netflix streaming.
Yeah,
back before, like that was still when they were mailing out DVDs, but streaming was like they were taking anything. Netflix was really taking anything submitted to them.
Right, which is
ThanksKilling
still
was
wild.
Because now it's like all Netflix produced stuff. You can't.
Right. Yeah.
Getting on Netflix is like extremely difficult, if not impossible anymore.
Right. I need a Netflix-produced ThanksKilling sequel.
Right.
That's what I need.
I don't know. I have no. They've done so much great work. They did ThanksKilling 3 obviously after that, but then they released The Headhunter.
Watch The Headhunter. Yep. Headhunter is a fun
It's
movie.
actually a great film.
It's so cool.
It's them flexing what they can do, and they did so much with next to nothing. Another low budget. They're really wanting to show people what you can do with a micro budget, and The Headhunter is such a good.
Because I can't remember, did it premiere on Shudder or did it get picked up as a Shudder exclusive?
Oh, it may have been picked up as a Shudder exclusive.
I think
that sounds very familiar.
Yeah,
because that was a big deal.
Yes, because I remember it being like hyped up. Because I continued to follow Jordan like after we had him on with Poltergeist with you the second time, and I remember him posting about it. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and then simultaneously seeing Shudder be like, hey, this new movie Headhunter, and I'm like, that's so dope. Like, what a cool win to see like happen. Like that was such a cool. Okay, so during that time when ThanksKilling like pops on Netflix, like, is anyone like, whoa, this is super dope, or was it just like, oh, that's a wild thing? And then when did it start like getting that sort of like weird underground like cult like following?
I think it was about a year after its release is when it kind of happened. I was starting to get. I'll never forget the very first person who I didn't know popped into like my Facebook messages, or like I got an email from somebody, and it was like, hey, I saw your movie. I really liked you in this movie. And I was like, how did you see this? And that's when I kind of realized, oh, it's on this thing, Netflix now. What? And then I don't know if someone posted an article, but it just started taking off. More people saw it, and then that's when recognition really started. I was still at that age where I filmed it, so I was recognizable, which it's not even close anymore, but it's like, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy when that took off, and it was very fast. I think that's probably what it feels to go viral. I think, because it was very, oh, I saw your movie on Netflix. Like, what? All these strangers, you look familiar. Oh, we watched that movie. Like, oh shoot. Like, yeah, it was a weird time for sure.
That's the wild thing. Again, even when we were trying to do the Poltergeist episode, like ThanksKilling was this thing that I like knew of, because when we did it for the podcast, that was the first time I ever watched it.
Yeah.
But like I had always heard of it.
Yeah.
And like that's what's so wild to me of what it became, is like it was this like magical, like funny, crazy thing in like the horror world.
Yeah.
That was like, have you ever seen because I remember for like years, ThanksKilling would get brought up, or I would see posts about it, and I'm like, what is this killer turkey horror movie? Like, what is this? Like, and I never tracked it down or watched it or anything, but I always knew about it.
Yeah.
Which is so wild to me that it goes from this like student project or just independent film in general to then becoming this thing where genuinely, I'm like a huge horror fan, so like I probably know a lot more of like the deeper layers of horror than your average fan, but like still,
Yeah.
I feel like for me to know that this thing is floating around out there, this evil turkey is out there somewhere in this wild movie, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
That is so insane.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure when you were doing it, you were like, yeah, cool, I'm helping out. Like, there's no way you knew
this is my friend. Yeah, this is my friend. Like, no big deal.
Yeah.
And then it turned into something insane.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Was that literally like a one-time thing, or was there any part of you, like, while you were in that phase or anything, was there any other interest in, like, acting or anything? Like,
yeah, I mean, I was like...
Because you have the theater background, like...
Right, and I think what ThanksKilling did, and this is a piece of my own demise, I would say, I was a little cocky. I mean, I had no reason to be, because it was a terrible movie and the acting was sludge. You know what I mean? But I felt like seeing a bunch of other terrible films. I felt like like people would say that my performance was like the best in that movie, which wasn't saying a whole lot, you know. But I was cocky in the fact that like I didn't feel like I should be working towards getting other roles and reaching out to folks. So being in my early 20s, I felt more like here I am. I'm here.
Who wants me?
Who wants me?
Right.
And those calls never came, you know, and why the fuck would they? But that was kind of my mindset in my early 20s. It was I definitely felt a little cocky, and I definitely felt like I wasn't like, why should I audition? You've seen what I can do. I'm a name stamped on this film, and this film, I have people coming up to me saying, oh, like, I have no following of my own. Like, and this film is terrible, like, at the end of the day. But you're not fucking Tara Reid, Ryan. You're not gonna. No one from Sharknado or Sci-Fi is gonna come to you and say, "Yeah, dude, we want you because you were in this one movie." But that's kind of like I thought that's what would happen. I paid for the IMDb thing. I did everything that I thought I was supposed to, but my little peanut brain was just too big for its britches. And I want to feel like I have changed in that respect to where, you know, I've come to the conclusion, like, okay, that was not the career for me. Like, now I want to create and promote. Like, I was going to mention to you, like, I want to do a movie.
Yeah.
I want to do another feature film. I want to do it. I want to do a cheesy horror film, but I want to do something that, you know, is the same kind of thing. I want to do something that is unique, something that's never been done before, whether it's an acting role or a directing role. I've never directed. I've produced The Biker Warrior Babe versus the Zombie Babies from Hell, which I don't ever want to talk about with anybody. but it is. But it's something like I really, really enjoy that art, and I haven't done anything like that for, you know, over 10 years. And it's just, there's nothing better if you've been on a film set. I mean, that's kind of your career right now, is doing on-set work and being on set and directing people and having a vision is so empowering, and it's so much fun. And the camaraderie you build with your crew and your cast, being on a feature film, the best feeling in the world is finishing a product. Like a feature film, like your final day on set, it feels so good. You get your first edit done of the film, it feels so good. And you start seeing everything come together, all that work and all the hours and time spent. It's better than writing a record, in my opinion, because there's more pieces to the puzzle. There's so many things that go into a film. And then, like, once you finish your film, then you get to take it on a journey. Then the real fun begins, because now you get to promote, and now you get to figure out, who am I going to talk to? Who's going to put this out? Does anyone want it? Is it that bad? Like, then you kind of get to see the fruits of your labor kind of come to fruition at that point. Like, who wants this? Does anybody? And worst case scenario, if not, I can still put it out myself, and we see what happens. Mm-hmm. And that's that's something I really want to do.
Yeah,
like in the next couple of years, I want to do a feature film.
Well, please keep me updated with that, or that's another thing I will ask to be involved in.
We would have so much fun. I mean,
yes.
When you get a crew that you really enjoy working with and you connect creatively, it's all about just finding that script, finding a script that everyone appreciates and enjoys, and it's something that is feasible to do on a shoestring budget.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that would be a blast.
So much fun.
Please let me know
if
and when that pops up.
We'll have to talk more. We'll have to talk
yes.
more. But I'm it's definitely something in the back of my mind, and I really want to get back on set.
So that's honestly something that I want to ask you now is what is next? Or not so much like, well, in the next 5 years, my 5-year plan is to be this. But more so again, you've done and been involved in so many of these different things, and you've got the event going and you're about to evolve it and do music, and you want to, make movies or whatever it may be. Do you see these, is there a list of other things that are either bucket list or just career items that you're this is kind of what I want to try next?
Yeah, we talked about the holiday show. I would really like to take that to another level. I would really like to work on a feature film. Both of those things may or may not happen. I mean, we'll see. But one thing I've realized when I turned 35 the other day, and I work at this job where everyone that I'm surrounded by, for the most part, they're 10 years younger than me, and I'm kind of having that old guy realization, I can't go talk to some of these people about 90s Nickelodeon. I'm realizing I'm almost 40. I'm an adult now. You know what I mean? It's really kind of hard to explain. I've struggled with it, but it's really kind of escalated since the pandemic. Kind of realizing wow, this is when you're at 40, 35 even double that, and you're at 70 years old. You're coming up on that downswing. This is getting close, to the halfway mark, and maybe I don't even make it to that. Maybe I only make it to 50-some. Who knows? But it's really kind of staring at me in the face now. I didn't have kids. I don't plan on having kids. And I always thought, when I was younger, I always thought, oh, dude, I'm going to have all these experiences. I was all about having these experiences. I'd have all these experiences and see these bands so I could have stories to tell my children. But as I grew older, I realized I don't want, I really don't want kids. It just sounds, the thought of having kids at that point, it just didn't appeal to me, and it still truly doesn't. I think about it a little more because of, when you think about legacy and no one gives a shit to hear my stories. Thank you for having me out here to listen to my story. But at the end of the day, it's no one gives a shit about your stories. But that's where I have started kind of capturing things and backing up photos, and I've been really into autobiographies recently. I read Travis Barker's autobiography, and it was really interesting. But a book is something that can live forever, just like you create music or, you have this podcast. It can live forever as long as electronics and the internet is around, just like a book. A book can live forever. So I want to start working on a timeline, and I'd like to actually write an autobiography. I don't think anyone will fucking care to read it or buy it, but
right here,
it would be interesting. Bruce Campbell did it, Tales from a B-horror king, and while I could never match what Bruce Campbell has done for independent film, I don't know if there's a story there for other people with ThanksKilling, but I think that there's something, and it's something that it would feel good to me to put something out to kind of talk about the beginning to where I am now, and how, when we got to ThanksKilling, tell those stories, multiple chapters. Let's go pre-production. Let's talk about all the stuff that happened. Let's talk about how it changed, how it changed my life in these certain aspects, and how have I devolved since then, or have I evolved since then? Where are we at now? And kind of going through that whole thing. It would feel good to me to get that on paper. And I know publishers, well, I have to figure that out. But that's something that's kind of on the back of my mind. That's kind of the 5-year plan.
Yeah, dude, that would be so sick. Let me be a person who is at least yo, write a book. It's so funny because in the ever-growing list of all the things, whether they're career items or bucket list items or whatever, that I keep adding to this list of things that I want to do,
yeah,
a book of some sort is one of them.
Nice.
And I feel like I'm having that same thought where I'm what do I know? What kind of life have I lived? But it's so funny because, again, another perspective piece. A recent guest of the podcast was a published author.
Okay.
Who is fully involved in the world of books and more so poetry, but it's all I'm sure there's similarity. Like,
sure.
It's published author is a published author.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of casually brought that up to her too, where I was like, oh man, like writing a book would be so much fun. And she's like, then why don't you? And then I'm like, well, I just don't know. Well, like, could I really do that? Like, I don't know. There's probably a bunch of formalities I don't understand. And she's like, no, you just write a book. And I'm like, yeah, but is my perspective that interesting? And I don't really know, like, who. And she's like, everything you can create matters in a way. It's kind of what, because like we kept talking about it after the podcast was off, and she was sharing more of the stuff with me where she's just like, you should just do it, you know? And honestly, when I first brought it up, like in the episode, I was expecting her to be like the kind of professional perspective of like, well, you know what you're getting into, you know.
Right.
That's honestly what I expected.
Right.
Of like me being like, oh, writing a book would be so much fun, and I expect you the response you expect from people like that. I think sometimes people who are doing the thing that maybe you would like to do, I think you're usually ready for that. Like, here's the hit of realism. Here's reality.
Right.
Like, could you write a book? Yeah, you could, but you need to think about this. There was no part of that.
Do you have at least $5,000 in your savings account to actually put this out?
Like, yeah, like, because don't even think about it.
Right.
And, you know, I'm sure there's somebody out there who could say that, and she's just a very positive and encouraging person, but there was no hint of that. She was like, you could do it. And she even revealed to me, like, there's such a, like, you can self-publish via Amazon, and like, being a published author means you're a published author. It does not matter the way that you did it. I had another friend on the podcast who, like me, it was just on a list of many things he felt like doing. Yeah. And a couple of years ago, he published his own poetry book as well.
Incredible.
And he just made up his own publishing company to house friends' things that they wanted to do. And it literally, he made it, and it exists, and it worked. And so I'm like, I hear things like that, and I hear encouragement from those people of being like, no, you can do it. Like, if you feel like you have an idea or any sort of goal, like, there's an importance somewhere in what you want to share. The same reason, we already kind of talked about this earlier, but the same reason this podcast exists. There is importance to everyone's perspectives and stories that they have in their life. So in a roundabout way, this is me being like, yo, dude, somebody recently told me if I want to write a book, I should. So I'm now going to transfer that to you.
I feel it.
And say, yo, if you want to make a book, you should, because literally that conversation, for me, it made it feel so much more real. Yeah. Because I didn't get that like devil's advocate pushback of like, well, you need to think about this, and can you really do this? And if you're going to publish, you need to do, and it's like, it's actually not that hard, and especially in the era that we live in now with internet and everything, you know, anything is possible, and it just depends on what level of possible you want to reach. Right. Again, if my expectation going into writing a book was New York Times #1 bestseller, I'm setting the bar a little high.
a little high, right?
The same way of me meeting a celebrity, I want to ride off into the sunset and be a part of their new movie. That's a little bit too high of a bar to set.
Right.
But if you have those realistic expectations of like, if you just want to write a book so you have that encapsulation of your legacy or life or story, or it can have some lesson, in it of people chasing their dreams or doing what they want, like whatever it is. Yeah. That's where the value lies.
Absolutely.
And again, reminder, disclaimer, everybody, I don't think this stuff all the time. I learn this stuff from other people, and it makes me feel better about my life. So I want to share that. I think you should write a book. 100%.
I've got chills, man. I just feel like, certain things, I'm not a spiritual person. I don't believe things happen for a reason, but I think that there's some coincidences that really connect.
Yeah.
This is an example. It's just like, why the hell would you say this to me right now? Like, this is so weird. Why would I even, I've never shared this with anybody before. It's something I've always thought of.
Yeah.
But you're right. And what's so interesting, and it's something I always tell myself, and I've been telling myself this phrase for years, and I know it's a stupid, giant corporate conglomerate, but the best motto ever is literally the words, just do it. Because at the end of the day, man, the things that I've done in my life, I would never have done unless I didn't tell myself, dude, just do it. Make a movie, just do it. Okay, here's step one. Let's do it. Because if you don't do that part, then you're never going to get something done. And you literally quoted that when you were talking about the person who started, who is the published poet author. she said, just do it. Like, yeah, no shit, yeah. That's how, it's not necessarily easy, but that really is how easy it is just to, like, just start. Like, what's step one? Go.
Yep.
If you start that, set goals and move forward. But I think that's the hardest thing. And I think that the hardest thing really is starting something.
100%. And that's like, I know we joke about like what just do it is now is Nike's slogan, but
right.
That's the weird thing. And I have talked about this so many times with people. Like, that is such a cliche slogan and a perfect slogan for a company to have, but like, because it is so true.
It's so
everything
true.
you just said.
Yeah.
Just do it. I don't
Right.
know. Aside from like murdering people, right, so, don't do that.
Right.
These fun things, just do it. Just write a book. Because I love that idea, and that's why I'm the guy who's like doing a billion things, because I need to find out whether I actually want to do it or not.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is you'll find out if you really care about something when you start doing it and you're in the middle of it.
Yep.
So I could be sitting right now and I'm all hype and I'm like, dude, let's write books.
Right. Right.
A year from now, I could maybe have attempted to write a book, or the book that I really thought I wanted to do. And maybe we talk in a year, I could be like, dude, I got 2 chapters in and realized I did not want to write a book. So that the just do it idea for me doesn't even necessarily mean accomplish it.
Complete it.
Complete it, yes. It doesn't even mean complete it. Just try it.
Start it.
Yep.
Yeah, just get your feet wet. I mean, if it's a little too much, how bad do you want it? Like, you can always back off.
Because you'll find out.
You'll find out.
You will find out when you get into the middle of it. I could start writing the book. Like I said, I could get 2 chapters in and be like, this takes way too much energy. I thought this was a cool idea. I gave it a shot. Now I can check that off my list because it's a thing I tried, and now I realized I didn't want to do it that bad.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could attempt to write your book, and you could get into it, and you'd be like, this takes so much time and so much just stuff that I just, this isn't for me. And that's okay. That's okay.
Exactly.
You tried it. Try it.
Right.
Like, trying it and doing it, realistically, it's the same thing.
Do we have time for a story?
Totally.
So I will tell a biker babe versus the zombie babies from
Boom,
Hell.
got it out of here. Look at that.
Yeah. So I'll tell one here, because this is, I don't know. It was like a huge testament to me, like work ethic and persistence and just doing it, essentially. I had a friend, Jeremiah Morehouse. He had, like, back when I was in my punk band, he had a little shop, like almost like a goth shop in the local mall in Heath. And it was like the place for misfits to go. They get their, My Chemical Romance clothing or whatnot. But it was a shop that he owned, he opened, and he actually sold my band's CD in his shop. Cool, right? Like, we were selling them for like $1. I don't know, something dumb. But I would stop in like once every couple months, and he would hand me like the $5 that week that we got, which was, what a cool thing for an individual to do, right? And he had approached me. And this is like years later. His shop had shut down. After, ThanksKilling this was like in the heat of ThanksKilling being hot at that point. He approached me and he said, "Hey, I've been working on this script for like 10 years. I've had it. It's the Biker Warrior Babe versus the Zombie Babies from Hell. Would you want to like read it or see anything?" I remember he gave it to me. And I'll be honest, I didn't read it. Mistake, probably. And if anyone hands you a script to read, you should probably always read it. But I just said, dude, there's no reason that you need to hold back. Like, why don't we shoot it? I mean, you've been thinking about this for how long? How many edits have you done? Why don't we just do it? Like, get the same kind of thing. And he was like, well, I don't know where to start. I was like, dude, we just need someone with a tripod and a camera. I'll produce it. We need actors. We need someone with some lights. I mean, I feel like we can get this all together, and we got it all together. And there was a tragedy kind of in the middle of our shooting. A close friend had passed away to him and everyone who was involved in the casting, and everything just kind of stopped. We probably had another week's worth or 2 weeks worth of stuff to film, and I remembered like feeling just dread that we had spent so much time shooting, and it was just the show was dead. Like, that was it. It's incomplete. And I felt so discouraged, and it bothered me. All these actors that put in their time for no money, like, no one got any compensation for anything on that set, and all this time was just wasted. And I feel like one of those, you always hear that story about the project that was never finished. And it bothered me so bad that I was like, you know what? Fuck it, we're doing this. And I started making those phone calls. I called the director, I called Jeremiah, and I said, dude, we need to finish this. Like, I don't care what it takes. He's like, well, I'm okay. Like, I'm in. Like, let's do it. And I remember having to make those calls to everybody. And their calls were your tails between your legs, because you essentially I called the whole thing off because heads weren't right and things just weren't going the way that they needed to. Called everybody. I remember one of the cast members saying, hell no, fuck off. Like, I don't want to talk to you again. You've ruined my life. And I'm just like, well, yes, like, oh, yeah, I can't finish it. And I felt so bad. But he was joking. He called me back. He's like, I was just kidding, man. Yeah, I'm in. And I was like, dude, I was like ready to cry. Like, dude, this is freaking great. And lo and behold, we finished everything. We accomplished it. We finished filming, kind of going back to like that feeling that you feel when you shoot the last bit of film. We ran a Kickstarter campaign for post-production to kind of help us out with expenses to getting it released and everything. It almost hit our goal. We were like $1,000 under, but we were able to keep what we needed. Got all this done. We got it done, and we got the movie released. And that is like, as much as I despise, like, there was a lot that kind of happened in post-production that pains me beyond belief. And the film is dreadful. I mean, it's a tough watch if you've never seen it. It's a tough watch. But we worked with what we had, and we made a movie, and we put it out. And it's there. It's out there. It exists. It's out there everywhere. And that, to me, is like, dude, I feel good saying I fucking did that. Like, I was able to push that over the edge, as much as people despise it. Because, the reviews are absolutely dreadful. It's no ThanksKilling by any means. It's a really tough watch. But it was finished. And I still feel proud of that. I still feel proud that I got it. Like, we were able to buckle down and get it done and get it released. So that was like, that's something that that was a good feeling. Like, being able to see that premiere. Like, cool, it's done.
And I feel like the point to that is that, like, you could have been fine, like, when it got called off, and be like, hey, you know what? Okay, there's nothing in me that is saying we need to finish this, but there was something that was.
Yeah. Yep.
So you knew it needed to be accomplished.
Yeah.
It needed to be completed. You had that feeling of, it wasn't just like, hey, well, we tried. That's actually good enough in this scenario. I'm good with that. No. It was, I can't let this just like stop.
Right.
I need to get it across the finish line. And that I think is like a super good thing to hear.
Yeah.
Because again, it's figuring out that balance. Like, identifying like what that voice in your head is saying. Like, is it that lingering thought of like, you really need to keep doing that? Yeah. Or with the book comparison, you could start writing your book, you could get into it, and then if it becomes hard and you're like, I'm not going to do this right now, if there was a voice still in you that says you need to finish that book, that means
right.
You want to make a book.
Right, exactly.
But if you try it, not really your thing, you set it aside, you cross it off the list, whatever, and there's nothing that says you really should accomplish. You really need to complete that. You really need to do that.
Yeah.
If that voice isn't there, then you can comfortably sleep at night knowing like, I don't need to. I didn't need to do that thing.
Right.
But I think that's great. Okay, let me ask you last couple things actually.
Yeah.
I'm actually really interested to hear what your view on this would be. Or not your view, but your thought, your answer. This is actually a new question that I'm trying out with people on this show.
Okay.
So
shit.
We'll see if it continues to be cool and goes well, or I don't know. Maybe people are like, that's a stupid thing to ask. Let's pretend there is an entity that comes to you, right? I don't know if it's God, a person who just scientifically knows everything, but this entity comes to you with 100% factual information. They know everything. If that person, that entity came to you with 100% facts, what would they tell you that your purpose is?
Do I know that they are they like the factual monster?
Yes.
Like it is like
they're the factual, and you know, it's not some like hidden thing that's coming up, and you're the first person that's finding out. It's like no. It is this like whether it could be a fucking robot with all the perfect computer, information, whatever it is, but they come to you, they know what your purpose is, and you can ask and you can say, okay, I want to, let's either confirm what my purpose is or tell me what it is. What do you think that they're telling you?
Man, it's almost like, what day are they telling me this on? Is it like, is your purpose like you are a dick? like you bring so much stress upon other people, or like, I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough question to answer. I mean, I would hope that my purpose is to bring joy to other people's lives. And I feel like that's like a really cliche thing to say, but I think that above all else, I feel like I exist to please others, I think. And that brings me joy in seeing others like really happy. And I think that at the root of everything, I think that goes to my childhood, theatrics and, performing. It feels nice to be recognized, but at the same time, it's like, did I touch someone emotionally? Did I make someone smile? Did someone go, oh shit, that's the ThanksKilling guy. Like, this is fucking rad. Like, yeah, I think that's, at the end of the day, I think that's why I'm here, if I was here for a reason.
Yeah, dude.
But it's such a weird cliche thing to say, I think.
It's great. We just talked for a whole section about just do it and how cliche that is. But again, most cliche things are cliche because they're true.
Right.
They're oversaid and overused and overstated and all this sort of stuff because it's 100% accurate. And I think it's just up to the people who maybe hear those overstated things to determine what's the good that I can take from this? Like, no. What's the real reasoning that somebody says, just do it?
Yeah.
Or what's the real reasoning? Like, what's the real meaning? When you sit and say, like, I think my purpose is to bring, other people happiness or entertain people or whatever it is, like, sure, you can say that sounds cliche,
right.
But it might sound cliche, but because that is such a true thing, that is a great thing to be doing.
You're exactly right. Yeah. What would you say?
Oh, man, I didn't think you'd turn it back on me like that. It's funny. I'm sitting here as this like podcast host guy, and I'm like, I'm gonna think of these hard-hitting questions for my guests and get all artsy. And I never have once thought about what my answer would be. I think I'm gonna contradict myself completely because I'm gonna be like, it's such a cliche answer. I literally feel like my purpose is to, honestly, maybe very similar to yours. Yeah. I think my purpose is genuinely to create things that did not exist before that make people feel something.
Yeah.
Whether that feeling is connection, because there's a part of me that loves teaching people things, but at the core, I really also love entertaining people. So I love to educate via entertainment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if there's something, and whether that is like I make the coolest horror movie ever, that's more of an entertainment thing, but I'm going to string through some like emotional things that maybe teach you something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of like, oh man, this left me with this feeling when I watched this movie or whatever it is. And so I feel like there's a handful of answers that I would give to that. But I think it is like maybe wrapping it all up. And I feel like I say this a billion times on this show, but like I feel like my, key to maybe one of my purposes is storytelling. I think I am supposed to tell stories and create things and make some sort of an impact in that way, whether it's helping somebody start a company or helping somebody with graphic design or doing video or whatever it may be. Like, and I feel like I'm answering my own question terribly.
No, man.
But I really do feel like it is creating, it is storytelling. It's some form of better ways to describe that is escaping me right now. But I feel like that's what my answer would be. It is some form of that.
You're an artist and an educator, man. You're that's so incredibly important. And that's super rad. Because I mean that goes along with your Facebook post too. It's like ask me what I do. I see those elements for sure. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that made some sort of sense.
It definitely did.
And you're like, dude, what the heck was that? Like, oh, you want to be a creative? Okay, dude, sure, I get it. Like, give me a better answer than that. Yeah, no, that I feel like is the thing. I feel like I've identified that just as I feel like you have, which is why I've asked you so many series of different questions, that I feel like somewhere along the lines you identified, very similar to me, that to use a funny phrase now, it wasn't a phase.
Yeah.
Like, creating wasn't just a thing that you wanted to do for a little bit, where you were like, I'm young and don't have that many life responsibilities. I want to do some fun, silly things. Because I think it can feel like that a lot.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you're leaving high school and it's like, oh, I don't want to get a job. I want to do this and I want to be funny and create and whatever. And
I want to follow my dreams.
Literally. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's the thing. It's like at some point that either falls off.
Right.
And then you kind of forget about it and it becomes a thing that you didn't even try to do. So it just sits there and lingers. Or you at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the thing. At some point you identified like, yeah, no, I'm going to structure my life to be a fulfilling one. Yeah. I'm going to structure my life to do the things, to have the ability to do the things and try the things that I want to do with that core purpose of bringing people together or entertaining them or educating them or storytelling or whatever that, like, those kind of key factors can be. Mm-hmm. That's when I think it becomes a purpose. That's when I think after some time you can identify what that purpose is. You can look at the things that you enjoy doing and then see what sort of impact on the world that might have. And I don't mean like saving the world from an evil force, but just like we were talking about earlier, if you write a book, somebody reads it, maybe it puts their life in different perspective for them because they're like, wow, I relate to this. I learned something from this, whatever. And it can just be an entertaining story about how wacky ThanksKilling was.
Right.
But they can still take something away from it. And so I think that's the key to this. You know what I mean? That I think we have in common a lot.
Yeah.
Is we like to do all these different things and you can strip it down to the simplest, like, for lack of better terms. We love creating, we love entertaining, we love storytelling, whatever it is, but it's still that purpose to make an impact, to maybe educate somebody, to make somebody feel something or bring people together.
Yeah.
And I think that those are, like, you don't have to have that perfect answer of, I want to hopefully become president so I can change the way the system works. Like, it doesn't have to be that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, okay, last thing.
Okay.
We're going to stay in the deep end of the pool here that we just dove into.
Swimming.
Swimming. Yeah. Do you need floaties or not?
I'm trying. I'm kicking.
This is when you're like, dude, I'm terrified of water. This isn't a funny joke.
This isn't funny, man.
This is not cool. Interview over.
Not okay.
Delete all of it. Right. I don't want to be on this show anymore. Okay. Actually, before I ask the last thing, is there anything major that you're like, dude, we haven't even dug into this part of my life?
Dude, we've covered so much.
So I'm sure
this has been insane. I was actually going to ask you, like, if you bill under Aetna insurance, if you're in network or out of network, and how much my copay is, because I feel like I owe you for $100 for a therapy session today. This has been really interesting. This has been cool. It's been a really cool discussion with us today.
Yeah, no, dude, that is the coolest thing you could tell me. Honestly, I love when I can be the de facto therapist.
So next week, right? Same place.
See, same time. Do you do this weekly, or like? I know you get different guests, but like, how often do you want a reoccurring one?
Right.
No, dude, this was seriously a blast of a conversation.
Oh, agreed.
Like,
yeah,
and that's why I always like asking that. I know it's like a weird, like, put you on the spot, like, think through your life, but like, I always want to check with people, and because that's the feeling that I want you to have when you leave here.
Yeah.
As much as I want the listeners or viewers to be like, what a fun conversation. I got to know Ryan better, or know him in general, and wow, they had fun stories and fun perspectives. As much as I want them to feel that way, I always want the guest to be like, I did not waste 2 hours of my life today. Like,
right.
I felt like I had a therapy session, or I felt like that was a fun conversation. So more than anything, that's why I'm always like, hey, double check anything you feel like we're leaving unturned here before we wrap up. So final question I ask, I end every episode the same. If you've listened to them, I guess you've been spoiled. You know the question already. But ask the same thing at the end of every episode. If right now, on the other end of that microphone, you had access to everyone in the world, every single person could hear you and understand you, and they're about to receive a message that you're going to give them. If you had access to talk to everyone at one time, what is it that you want them to hear?
So this is a message.
Yes,
to everyone in the world. This is the emergency broadcast system message.
But the positive or realistic, whatever it is. This is every movie you've seen where somehow the cities all have speakers, which everyone speaks through as the hero gives their speech. What is it you're sharing with them?
I would let them know that the world is a better place because you exist. And I say that because I think everyone struggles with depression. I think every individual has their own form of depression, whether it's diagnosed or not. I think everyone has thoughts of that dark place and removing themselves from the planet. And while I know that there are a wealth of people who do really bad things, and there's a wealth of people who do really good things, and a lot of people who are just kind of like in the middle, who just try to get along and do their best. I think that at the end of the day, if we all truly believed that the world was better because we do exist, I think that would help with a lot of people's mental status, I think. But I think everybody exists. I think that everybody has a right to exist, and I think everybody can bring, positivity to the planet. Even though there are really bad people who you think bad thoughts about sometimes, but if those bad people would change their perspective, perhaps they wouldn't be bad people anymore. I don't know. But that's probably what I'd say.
That was great.
Thanks,
this is the part of the movie where everyone sits around. You see all the cities, it cuts to every city, and they're all standing there, and then everyone's just...
That's so funny.
Yeah. And then it even cuts to evil Turkey sitting there. Maybe I should change my mind. Maybe I should change.
Maybe I should put in some volunteer time.
That is how this movie would end. Dude, that was a freaking blast of a conversation.
Agreed, man. I'm so happy you asked me to come on. This was a lot of fun.
Dude, I am so stoked you were down to do this. That was this conversation, and I feel this way every single time I do an episode.
Oh, man, I'm sure.
And I just get reminded every time. But, I'm just going to tell you, this conversation reminds me of why I love to do this. This was a freaking blast, dude.
Awesome.
I cannot thank you enough for being
me too.
here.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. This was a lot of fun. I love chatting with you. You bring so much perspective, and I truly do feel like I need to have you bill my insurance or something. It's how many emotional knots did I just kind of work out? It was this verbal massage, just shooting the shit and sharing and talking. And I think that it's just escalated. You doing this through the pandemic and doing this right now and just having a real conversation with somebody was really freaking nice. And we're doing it in person, which those video calls sucked, man. As much as they were nice to be able to do, it wasn't the same. So this was really, really freaking cool. Just sitting down with a cup of coffee, just having a chat.
Yes, dude.
That was cool as hell.
I love it. Really awesome. I am so stoked that you enjoyed this.
Absolutely, man.
That is always what I want. This is a blast. Okay, before we say goodbye, let everyone know if you want them to find you on the internet. Where can they find you on the internet? If they want to talk to you about anything, they want to reach out, and they're finally that freaking dude from ThanksKilling, I've been looking for him forever. I finally have found out who he is. They want to tell you how much they love it. Or, of course, they want to check out what you're doing with the charity work or the music or literally anything that you do. Where can they find you and all those projects around the internet?
Sure. Instagram, thatguyintk1. If you look up the Euge Holiday Show, that's on Facebook, or just my name, Ryan Francis, on Facebook. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. You'll see me with a picture of a pro wrestler, more than likely, on the thing. I can't wait to tell you my Ric Flair story. I'll tell you
Ric
that.
Flair story,
yeah, I'll tell that with the Virgil story too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you when we're off, but it's really
perfect.
funny.
Well, hey, that's where you can find Ryan around the internet. While you're searching for him and following him, I'm going to go get some juicy tidbits about some wrestlers that I've been a fan of forever, and I cannot wait. Dude, Ryan, thank you so freaking much for doing this.
Oh,
dude.
Bless you for having me. This has been an absolute blast. I can't wait. I can't wait till you put this out, and I can't wait to chat with you more about future projects because there's stuff down the line.
We're for sure. Outside of the Virgil and Ric Flair stories, I want us to keep talking about tons of freaking other things, dude. This was so much fun.
Excellent. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
We did it, dude.
That was fun, man.
That's it.
That was
right, there it is. Hope you guys liked it. And if you can't tell that Ryan is a solid dude after listening to that, then I do not know what it's going to take for you to do so. This was probably one of the most fun episodes of this show that I've done. The third podcast that Ryan and I have done together, and somehow they get better and more fun each time we do it. So if you dug it as much as I did, follow Ryan on social to keep up with the community events that he's doing and watch him expand the huge event. Personally, I can't wait to see what else he does with that. And honestly, maybe the biggest recommendation I feel like giving you from this episode is really to go find and watch ThanksKilling. If you're a fan of like B-level horror movies, or just those types of wacky, old kind of campy style horror movies, go watch it. And prepare to have a good time while you do it. And maybe, just a quick note, maybe hide the kids for this one, though. It might be maybe just a little vulgar sometimes. So, yeah, that's my biggest recommendation. Don't miss out on the wackiness that is ThanksKilling. So, horror fans, go watch one of the craziest indie horror movies that you could find. I promise you, Sharknado has nothing on ThanksKilling. And really, just go to watch a young Ryan act. If anything else, if you're not worried about a killer turkey, maybe you just go see a very young Ryan acting out around a killer turkey. So I'll wrap it up there. Go watch ThanksKilling. Of course, leave a rating and review on the show if you liked it, but that'll do it. Let's wrap it up. It is so wild to me that I am almost to 50 episodes of these things. That is just so crazy. We're inching closer and closer, and we're pretty deep into this thing. So if you've been listening since the beginning, by the way, big thanks to you. These conversations and stories honestly just keep getting better, at least in my opinion. So make sure to follow the show to get all of those new stories, all of those new episodes, the full story episodes, along with the shorter topic-based 15-minute episodes called 15-Minute Fridays. You can get those. Every version of this podcast can be found if you subscribe on iTunes, follow on Spotify. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's all through my personal YouTube. That's YouTube/Ross Theisen. And follow it around social media at WYDHPod. And gear up, as always, for the Monday after next when I'm back with a brand new guest you may or may not know of, sharing their story that... You know how this goes at this point. Their story you for sure never heard.